Chapter 1628. The square fell into a dead silence. Everyone was deeply shocked by Qin Feiyang's mental strength. Level 45. It seemed that this could only be described with the word, abnormal. Swish. Suddenly, Willow Tree appeared out of thin air, walked quickly to Qin Feiyang's side, and whispered a few words. What? Qin Feiyang suddenly got up, and the mental stone in his hand was crushed with a crack. Huh! Everyone was surprised. What made Qin Feiyang lose his composure? Qin Feiyang said in a deep voice, "Have you asked how they disappeared?" Willow Tree said, "I asked the nearby beasts. They said that it was a giant python. It should be the Guardian's doing. This bastard, there's no end to it." Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed with a cold light. "Brother Qin, what are you talking about?" "What beast?" Li Yun asked anxiously. Qin Feiyang said, "Just now, I asked Willow Tree to go to the Nether Hall, but the people of the Nether Hall have all been transferred by the giant python." "All transferred? What does this giant python want to do?" Li Yun frowned. "Who knows?" Qin Feiyang sneered, rolled his eyes and looked at Li Yun with a smile. "Let's discuss something." "What is it?" Li Yun looked at him warily. "I won't take it by force. Why are you guarding against me?" Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes and said with a smile, "I also need a cluster of 8th grade pill fire." Li Yun was stunned and smiled bitterly. Sure enough, he couldn't escape the fate of being exploited. "Okay. It's just a cluster of pill fire. I'll give it to you." Give me the pill fire," Li Yun said loudly. He was straightforward and did not beat around the bush. Qin Feiyang also liked this person more and more. Li Chong ran over with his alchemic flame. Li Yun looked at the pill fire and could not help but feel her heart ache. She said helplessly, "Give the pill fire to your Uncle Qin." "For him." "Then what do we use?" Li Chong frowned. Li Yun waved her hand and said, "We still have rank 6 and rank 7 alchemy fires. It's not a problem." "What a bandit." Li Chong snorted inwardly, but he didn't dare to show any disrespect on the surface. He handed the alchemy flame to Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang grabbed it in his hand. Li Yun also immediately erased the blood contract inside. Ning Mingi asked suspiciously, "Young master, why do you need 2 8th grade pill fires?" "You'll know soon enough." Qin Feiyang smiled. Whoosh! Beside him, 2 more alchemy fires appeared. One of them was the Nether Devil Flame. The other flame belonged to the main pagoda. Li Yun looked at the Nether Devil Flame and frowned. "Don't you already have an 8th grade alchemy fire? Why do you still want ours?" "Just watch quietly." Qin Feiyang smiled, put away the pampered Qinghai on the table in front of him, and then took out Ning Mingi's alchemy fire. Looking at the 3 8th grade alchemy fires, the Nether Devil Flame immediately pounced on them as if it had seen 3 delicious cakes. This! Everyone was surprised. What was going on? What happened next shocked everyone once again. The Nether Devil Flame swallowed the 3 8th grade alchemy fires in front of them. Boom! Following that, the Nether Devil Flame rushed out a terrifying aura. It covered all directions, and the whole city instantly turned into a big furnace. The houses, streets, and squares were all melting. Qin Feiyang's eyes also trembled, and he got up and looked at the Nether Devil Flame in excitement. Because the aura emitted by the Nether Devil Flame at this moment was divine power. In other words, the Nether Devil Flame had successfully been promoted to the 9th grade. According to the corresponding level, the 9th grade was already comparable to the existence of the false god. "Father, save me quickly!" Li Chong suddenly screamed. The clothes on his body suddenly caught fire, his hair was also on fire, his skin was also severely burned, and blood flowed out of his body. He was only a 6-star war emperor, so he naturally couldn't withstand this kind of high temperature. Ning Yifeng and Zhao Shiming were in the same situation as him. Seeing this, Qin Feiyang hurriedly controlled the Nether Devil Flame to reduce the temperature. At this time, the temperature here slowly cooled down. Li Chong and the other 2 also quickly took out healing pills and stuffed them into their mouths. Looking at the Nether Devil Flame, their faces were full of fear. Seeing that the 3 of them were out of danger, Li Yuan and the others also heaved a sigh of relief. Subsequently, everyone looked at the Nether Devil Flame in unison, their eyes full of surprise. Qin Feiyang looked at Ning Mingi and said with a smile, I told you, the alchemy fire will be more valuable in my hands. Ning Mingi said. What the hell is going on? Qin Feiyong stretched out his arm and spread out his 5 fingers. The nether devil flame landed on his palm and laughed. It's called the nether devil flame, it can devour other alchemy fires and increase its grade. What? There's actually such an alchemy fire? Everyone was shocked. Qin Feiyong said, now it has already been raised to the 9th grade, I should be able to refine a pill with 8 pill veins. 8 pill veins. Once again the crowd was deeply shaken. But Qin Feiyong suddenly frowned again. But what? Everyone looked at him suspiciously. Qin Feiyong thought, the nether devil flame has already transformed into a divine fire. Can my current pill furnaces withstand its burning? This? Ning Mingi hesitated for a moment, then shook his head and said, this is really hard to say. I'll give it a try. Qin Feiyong immediately entered the castle and walked to the front of the pill furnace. Fatso and the others had already come out from Ling Yunfei's spatial divine object. At this moment, they were all looking at Qin Feiyong, their eyes filled with anticipation. Are you sure you want to try? This might destroy a pill furnace. Dan Wangkai was originally preparing to refine pills, but seeing Qin Feiyong's arrival, he immediately retreated to the side and asked. If it's destroyed, then so be it. Qin Feiyong said, reviving the nether devil flame. In the end, in less than 3 breaths of time, the pill furnace in front of him melted. Qin Feiyong smiled bitterly, looked at Dan Wangkai and said, looks like I have to find a 9th grade pill furnace. Dan Wangkai said, a 9th grade pill furnace is already considered half a divine artifact, it's not that easy to find. Qin Feiyong lowered his head and muttered to himself. Fatty asked, boss, does this nether demonic flame need to be upgraded by another grade before it can be considered a true divine fire? But a 9th grade pill fire is not easy to find. Not to mention 3 clusters of 9th grade pill fire. Qin Feiyong shook his head and sighed, leaving the castle alone. How is it? Willow Tree and the others looked at him. Qin Feiyong shook his head, looked at Ning Mingi and Li Yun, and said, do you have a 9th grade pill fire and a 9th grade pill furnace? The 2 shook their heads. Qin Feiyong said, then do you know where it might be? It's hard to say. It might be in the miracle, but it depends on whether you can find it. Li Yun said. Forget it, we'll talk about it later. Qin Feiyong smiled, looked at the snake meat in the pot, and said, I can't help but want to taste it first. He stretched out his big hand and grabbed in the air. A piece of snake meat flew out of the big pot and floated in front of him. Seeing this, Zhao Tai immediately propped up a divine power barrier to protect Li Chong and the other 2. Don't be nervous. I can control the temperature of the nether devil flame as I wish, and it won't hurt them anymore. Qin Feiyong smiled faintly, took out the nether devil flame, placed it under the snake meat, and quickly recovered. However, the giant python's divine meat was beyond imagination. After a full 100 breaths, there was no oil flowing. After all, it's a war god level existence. Although the nether devil flame has been upgraded to the 9th grade, it's still not a real divine fire. How can it be cooked so easily? Li Yun said. Qin Feiyong nodded. Time passed little by little. Half an hour later, the snake meat finally began to flow. Wisps of meat fragrance wafted out, making people salivate. Another half an hour later, the snake meat was finally cooked. The surface was golden yellow. The meat fragrance assailed the nostrils, making the people present couldn't help but swallow their saliva. Who has seasoning? Seeing that it was almost done, Qin Feiyong looked up at everyone and asked with a smile. Me. Zhuge Mingyang sneakily came up and took out a dozen jars, which were full of all kinds of seasonings. After Zhuge Mingyang sprinkled these seasonings one by one, an even more intoxicating fragrance suddenly wafted out. Qin Feiyong also couldn't help but swallow his saliva. But just as he took out the chong shui and was about to cut a piece to taste, Zhuge Mingyang grabbed the snake meat and quickly retreated. Qin Feiyong was stunned, his face immediately darkened, and said angrily, if you want to eat, don't you know how to roast it yourself? There's ready-made food, why would I roast it myself? Is there something wrong with my brain? Tisk, tsk, tsk. The taste of this divine meat is really good. Zhuge Mingyang rolled his eyes at Qin Feiyong, then sat on the ground without caring about his image, and started to chew on it with a face full of enjoyment. Qin Feiyang's veins were popping. He had roasted this piece of snake meat for an entire hour, but he didn't even get to taste it. It was too much. Li Yun laughed. Anyway, there's still so much, let's continue roasting. Qin Feiyang glared at Zhuge Mingyang, then looked at Li Chong and said, Go and get more. Is the snake soup still stewing? Li Chong asked. Of course. Qin Feiyang said. As a result, Li Chong took almost half of the snake meat and roasted it for Qin Feiyang. The other half was stewed directly. The divine meat contained an extremely terrifying energy. It was beneficial for anyone below the war god level. False god could strengthen the body. The war emperor, as well as those below the war emperor, could not only strengthen the body, but could also increase their cultivation. For example, after Li Chong, Zhao Shiming, and Ning Yifeng finished eating the snake meat, the huge amount of energy was about to burst their bodies. When Qin Feiyang saw this scene, he hurriedly said, The energy contained in the deity's flesh is even greater than I imagined. Is there anyone who has the power of a false god similar to the power of ice? Help them cool down and disperse the energy. I'll do it. Li Yun's wife took a step forward, rolled up the three of them, and soared into the sky. Then, with a wave of her hand, waves of false god power appeared, and the space around Li Chong and the other two immediately condensed into pieces of ice, trapping the three of them. Zhao Tailai, Ning Mingyi, and Li Yun were all extremely nervous. Finally, the three of them received huge benefits, and their cultivation soared by 4 small realms, directly stepping into the peak of the 9-star War Emperor realm. This, Qin Feiyang was dumbstruck. In the past, he had also eaten divine meat. It was the Holy Lion. But at that time, he had only broken through from the 6-star War Saint to the peak of the 7-star War Emperor realm, and it had not even allowed him to break through 2 small realms. One had to know. At that time, he was still in the War Sage realm. But now, Li Chong and the other two were all War Emperor, but they could still soar by 4 small realms? Obviously. The giant python was many times stronger than the Holy Lion. Chapter 1629. Father, Mother. Have we really reached the peak of the 9-star Combat Emperor realm? The three of them broke out of the ice. Their auras surged, but their faces were filled with disbelief. They could not believe that one's cultivation could make such a huge breakthrough. It's true. Li Yun and his wife, Ning Mingyi, and Zhao Tailai nodded. The three of them were overjoyed. They had broken through from the 6-star Combat Emperor realm to the peak of the 9-star Combat Emperor realm. This was like a dream. So what if you're at the peak of the 9-star Combat Emperor realm? Killing you is just a matter of moving my fingers. A disdainful voice suddenly sounded. Everyone raised their eyebrows and turned to look at Zhuge Mingyang. They saw him eating the barbecued meat with his head lowered and his face was filled with disdain. Zhao Shiming snorted, You're a fake god and we're just combat emperors. Of course you have the right to say that. Even your parents are trash in front of me. Let alone you. Zhuge Mingyang said indifferently. The faces of Zhao Tailai and the others were instantly filled with rage. You're not convinced? Zhuge Mingyang smirked and looked up at them. He said disdainfully, Come at me together. If you can even hurt a strand of my hair, you'll win. Arrogant. Presumptuous. The few of them were furious. I'm so arrogant. What can you do to me? Zhuge Mingyang's eyes were filled with provocation. Li Chong said angrily, If you have the ability, suppress your cultivation to the same level as mine and challenge me one-on-one. Shut up. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and said. Li Chong said unhappily, Uncle Qin, are you going to let him be so presumptuous? Can you not call me uncle? Qin Feiyang looked at Li Chong helplessly and said, He has the right to be presumptuous. Because even if he suppresses his cultivation to the 8 or 7-star Combat Emperor realm, you'll still be abused. Li Chong was surprised. Is he that strong? Brother Qin is still quite observant. Zhuge Mingyang smiled mockingly. He then lowered his head and chewed on the barbecued meat in his hand. Li Chong glanced at Zhuge Mingyang with a cold glint in his eyes. The woman also glanced at Zhuge Mingyang. She looked at Li Chong and said, Chonger, why aren't you thanking your Uncle Qin? If it wasn't for him, you wouldn't have been able to obtain such a great fortune. Li Chong quickly flew in front of Qin Feiyang and cupped his hands. Thank you, Uncle Qin. Why is it getting smoother and smoother? Qin Feiyang was speechless. Cough cough. Shi Meng, Yi Feng, come down as well. Thank the young master properly. Ning Mingi said. Don't. I'm really worried that I'll have another nephew and niece later. Qin Feiyang hurriedly waved his hand. There was still a trace of gratitude in Zhao Shiming's heart, but when she heard Qin Feiyang's words, it suddenly disappeared. She angrily said, Who wants to be your niece? Don't take advantage of us. Zhao Tailai's expression changed and shouted, Shi Meng, don't be rude, don't forget your current identity, you are the young master's subordinate. Zhao Shiming's eyes immediately turned red from being wronged. Zhao Tailai ignored her and hurriedly looked at Qin Feiyang, pleading, Young master, please calm down, this subordinate will definitely discipline her in the future. I'm not angry. What are you nervous about? Qin Feiyang said. Zhao Tailai heaved a sigh of relief. All right, let's continue with the snake soup. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and glanced at the barbecue in front of him. There was also some anticipation in his eyes. Then, he took out the chong shui, cut it into small pieces and put it into his mouth. A strong meat fragrance immediately engulfed his entire body. Moreover, he could clearly feel that the energy in the divine flesh was quickly surging to his limbs and bones. Everyone looked at Qin Feiyang. Li Chong and the other two had broken through 4 small realms in a row. Qin Feiyang would definitely be able to do it too. As pieces of barbecued meat were continuously put into his mouth, the energy became more and more terrifying. It was like a torrent of beasts, rampaging through his body. In the end, he ate a large piece of divine flesh. The energy could no longer be controlled and roared out of his body. He immediately rose into the air, stood in the void, closed his eyes, and refined the energy. Li Yun shouted, Madam, quickly. The woman waved her hand, and wind and frost suddenly appeared in the void. Qin Feiyang's surroundings quickly formed pieces of ice. Time passed breath by breath. Boom! Suddenly, Qin Feiyang's aura soared, directly breaking through the shackles and charging to the 7-star combat emperor. But it did not stop. It was still soaring. More than 10 breaths later, his cultivation had once again broken through to the 8-star combat emperor. However, just after breaking through to the 8-star combat emperor, his soaring aura came to an abrupt stop. That's it? Everyone was stunned. This was too strange. Li Chong and the other two had broken through 4 small realms. Why did Qin Feiyang only break through 2 small realms? With a crack, the ice shattered. Qin Feiyang shook off the ice fragments on his body, his face full of joy. Why are you so happy that you broke through 2 realms less than Li Chong and the other 2? Someone was puzzled. Of course I'm happy. Because I didn't expect to have a breakthrough in the first place. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Didn't expect? What do you mean? Everyone was puzzled. The divine flesh is like some elixirs. The effect is very good the first time you eat it. The second and third time, the effect will gradually weaken. And I have eaten divine flesh before. Qin Feiyang landed on the square and said with a smile. What? You have eaten divine flesh before? Everyone was dumbfounded. So to be able to break through 2 small realms is already a surprise for me. Of course I'm happy. Qin Feiyang's face sank when he said this. He said, This shows that the giant python's strength is much more terrifying than we thought. Everyone's heart sank when they heard this. It had eaten divine meat before, yet it still had such a good effect. This was enough to show that the giant python's strength was not ordinary. Why are you so nervous? With Chong Shui around, no matter how strong it is, it can't threaten us. Li Yun suddenly said with a smile. That's true. Everyone nodded. Qin Feiyang said, We can't rely too much on Chong Shui. Brother Qin, our situation is different from yours. You can continue to cultivate and break through to the War God realm and surpass the giant python. But we can't leave the Black Tortoise realm. The False God realm is already the peak. So we can only rely on external objects. Li Yun sighed. Yes. The others from the palace of Feng Tian nodded. They didn't know that Qin Feiyang had already mastered the method to break the demon mark. If they knew, they definitely wouldn't think so. Because once the demon mark was removed and they left the Black Tortoise realm, the power of laws would lose its effect. Their cultivations would also break through. Willow Tree glanced at the people from the palace of Fengtian and said, "Young master, Li Yun is a good person. Are you really not going to help them?" Qin Feiyang said, "It depends on the situation. If there are enough false god realm divine beasts in the Black Tortoise realm, it's not impossible to help them." Willow Tree nodded. Qin Feiyang gathered his thoughts. He waved his hand. Fatso and the others, as well as the white-eyed wolf and the other beasts, appeared one after another. As soon as these guys appeared, except for women like Lu Hong and Luo Qingzhu, they all pounced crazily on the barbecue like bandits. They were in the castle and could clearly hear everything outside, so they had been waiting impatiently for a long time. Lu Zhang gripped a piece of barbecue tightly and glared at the aggressive white-eyed wolf. He roared, "Wolf cub, don't snatch it from me, okay?" "Sorry, I didn't notice you." The white-eyed wolf smiled embarrassedly. "I'm standing here alone. How could you not notice me? Do you think I'm stupid?" Lu Zhang snorted coldly, turned around and ran to Lu Hong's side. He smiled and said, "Honger, this group of bandits is too scary. Try it quickly." "What about us?" Luo Qingzhu, the Ghost Queen, and the Miss of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion stood at the side and stared straight at Lu Zhang. "Go get it yourself." Lu Zhang waved his hand and didn't even look at the girls. He only had eyes for Lu Hong. "Lu Zhang, you're going too far. We're all women like Lu Hong. How can you treat us differently?" The Miss of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion said unhappily. Lu Zhang glanced at the girls and said something that angered them to death. "Are you very familiar with me? Are you looking for a beating?" The Miss of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion rebuked angrily. "Hee. If you want to hit me, I won't give you a chance. In this world, only Honger has the qualifications to hit me." Lu Zhang grinned and said, looking like a rascal, "Bah! Who wants to hit you? Not like a man." The girls all revealed looks of disdain. Lu Hong, who was at the side, was already blushing. "Ah! Roar!" Not long after, Wolf King, Fatso, and the others began to wail like ghosts and howl like wolves. One by one, they rushed into the sky. Their faces were flushed red, like red-hot soldering iron. All the pores on their bodies were emitting air, and boundless energy crazily tore at their bodies. Ling Yunfei, call Li Jian, Scorpion King, and the others out. Although they have all reached the peak realm, and the divine meat is of no help to their cultivation, it can still temper their bodies. Qin Feiyang looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "Okay." Ling Yunfei, who was gnawing on the divine meat, responded vaguely. With a wave of his hand, Li Jian, Scorpion King, and the other beast suddenly appeared out of thin air. "What's going on?" Looking at the scene in front of them, Li Jian and the other beasts looked at each other. They had been in Ling Yunfei's spatial divine item, concentrating on comprehending the profound meaning of becoming a god, so they didn't care about what was going on outside. There were even many things that they didn't know. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "Divine meat, go and have a taste." "Divine meat?" The eyes of Scorpion King and the other beasts lit up. Li Jian's face was filled with shock. How could there be divine meat? He turned to look at Qin Feiyang and said in surprise, "Young master, you killed a divine beast?" "No. It's just a tail. The Guardian of Miracles' tail," Qin Feiyang said. "I see." Li Jian nodded. Of course he knew about the Guardian of Miracle. When Qin Feiyang fought with Mu Tianyang last time and the Guardian of Miracle appeared, he hadn't officially gone into seclusion yet. Then this divine meat really can't be missed. Li Jian smiled and went forward to grab a piece of barbecued meat. He returned to Qin Feiyang and said with a smile, "Being able to eat a piece of the Guardian of Miracle's divine meat will finally give me something to show off to my descendants in the future." Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. Li Jian sighed again and said, "If only Zhou Zhang hadn't died." Qin Feiyang's smile also disappeared. He patted Li Jian's shoulder and said, "I believe that you being alive is the best comfort for him." Chapter 1630. Rumble. High up in the sky, everyone's cultivation level soared in an instant. But like Qin Feiyang, they only soared by 2 small realms. However, Lu Zhang soared by 4 small realms in a row. This meant that he had never eaten divine meat before. He had already cultivated to the 4-star War Emperor level, so now his cultivation level directly caught up with Qin Feiyang. Everyone's strength had increased by a lot, which was naturally a joyous thing. Moreover, everyone had been cultivating in seclusion and hadn't relaxed for a long time. So they took this opportunity to indulge themselves. For the whole night, everyone was partying. They didn't know how many jars of wine they had drunk. But Qin Feiyong didn't touch a single drop of wine. Firstly, he didn't like to drink. Secondly, he had to guard against the Guardian's sneak attack. But after an entire night, the Guardian didn't appear, as if he had already given up on taking revenge on Qin Feiyong. Early the next morning, the party ended. Ling Yunfei and the others entered the castle one after another and began to cultivate. Li Chong and the other two broke through to the peak realm. As their parents, Li Yun and the others also began to explain to them the profound meaning of becoming gods. Qin Feiyong listened for a while. Their explanations were similar to what Elder Qin and Second Grandpa said. To him, it didn't have much meaning. Then, he turned and walked to the cauldron. Young Master Qin, the second elder of Fengtian Palace, was reviving a cluster of 7th-grade pill fire. The bottom of the cauldron was already red, and the water in the cauldron had long been boiling. Seeing Qin Feiyong coming over, the second elder raised his head and smiled. Yes. Qin Feiyong nodded and asked, "Are you also an alchemist?" Yes. But I only have a 15-level mental strength. I can't compare to young Master Qin. The second elder said in shame. A 15-level mental strength is already very rare. Qin Feiyong laughed. The second elder shook his head and said, 45, 15-level difference is a whole 30 levels. Young Master Qin, I really can't figure out how a person can have such a high mental strength. There's always someone better than you. Just because you don't know doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Maybe there is someone in this world with a higher spiritual power than me. Qin Feiyong said. If the first pagoda master was still alive, his spiritual power would definitely be higher than his. That's true. The second elder nodded. Qin Feiyong smiled and looked at the cauldron again. Although the water was already boiling, the divine blood in it had yet to solidify. The pieces of divine meat were also extremely fresh, as if they had just been put into the pot. Qin Feiyong smiled and said, "It seems that this pot of soup will take at least a month to boil. If I could use your netherworld devil flame to refine it, it definitely wouldn't take this long. But this wok can't withstand the high temperature of the nether devil flame." The second elder said, "There's no rush. The soup has to be cooked slowly so that it will be more fragrant." Qin Feiyong smiled. The second elder nodded. Brother Qin. Young master. At this moment, Li Yun and Ning Mingyi walked side by side towards Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong turned his head and said with a smile, "What's the matter?" We suddenly thought of something that we can't figure out. Let's go over there and talk." Li Yun's tone was a little low as he pointed to the left corner of the square. Qin Feiyong nodded. The three of them walked to the edge of the square. Qin Feiyong said, "What exactly is it that you can't figure out?" "It's about the Guardian. Although the Guardian is afraid of Chong Shui, it has other means. For example, it can send us out of the Black Tortoise realm. Once we leave the Black Tortoise realm, it doesn't even need to do anything. Once 3 months are up, we will die under the devil mark. Or it can send you out of the Black Tortoise realm alone. Without your help, we are equivalent to lambs waiting to be slaughtered in front of it. But it didn't do that. Why did it leave us alone?" Li Yun and Li Yun frowned. Qin Feiyong couldn't help but raise his eyebrows when he heard this. Suddenly, Zhuge Mingyang appeared beside the three of them like a ghost and asked curiously, "What are you guys talking about? Why are you sneaking around?" Li Yun said in disgust, "It has nothing to do with you. Go away." "Are you sure you want me to go away? You have to know that I've been by its side for a while. I know a lot of things." Zhuge Mingyang teased. Li Yun said, "Then tell me, where did it take the people of the Heavenly Sun Empire and the Nether Hall?" "I don't know." Zhuge Mingyang shook his head. Li Yun said angrily, "Then why did you say that you know a lot of things?" "I asked it about this, but it didn't say. However, it said something very important." Zhuge Mingyang said. "What's the situation?" Qin Feiyong asked. Zhuge Mingyang said with a smile, "You should be mentally prepared because this news will drive you crazy. The fire dragon is not dead." "What? Qin Feiyang's body shook and he said angrily, "How is that possible? I clearly saw its life fluctuations dissipating with my own eyes." Yes. If there were no accidents, it would definitely die. However, the giant python took the fire dragon to find an even more powerful person. It was this person who saved it. Zhuge Mingyang said. What kind of person? The creator of the miracle. Qin Feiyang said. According to the giant python, he's not the creator of the miracle, but he's almost the same. It also said that this person is very interested in you and explicitly asked it not to kill you. Zhuge Mingyang said with a smile. Interested in me? Qin Feiyang was stunned and asked in confusion, "Do I know him?" "I don't know." But according to what the giant python said, this person is indeed very powerful. Because only he can remove the devil mark. And the giant python also said that this person can control the thunder punishment of the miracle. Zhuge Mingyang said. Thunder punishment. Qin Feiyang's eyes trembled. The last time he fought with the fire dragon and the giant python, the thunder punishment appeared at the end. If it weren't for Chang Shui and the power of the ancient castle's law, he would have died under the thunder punishment. In other words, as early as that time, this person had already targeted him. Not the creator, but almost the same as the creator. There was no suspense. This person's strength must be very high. It was not a good thing to be targeted by such a terrifying existence. Ning Mingi and Zhuge Mingi were even more terrified. He didn't expect that there would be such a big shot in the divine ruins, even more powerful than the giant serpent. Now they couldn't help but wonder whether following Qin Feiyang was right or wrong. Wait. Suddenly, Li Yun looked up at Zhuge Mingyang and said, "You just said that the devil mark can only be removed by that big shot?" Yes. This is what the giant python said himself. Zhuge Mingyang nodded. Li Yun said again, "That giant python can't be removed?" "That's right." Zhuge Mingyang nodded again. "Isn't this completely hopeless? If the giant python can be removed, we still have a glimmer of hope. But that big shot is even more powerful than the giant python. How can we beat him?" Li Yun exclaimed, her face full of despair. Ning Mingi couldn't help but feel nervous, and secretly said, "Young master, will your method really work?" Qin Feiyang said, "I haven't tried it yet, I don't know, but I believe that he won't lie to me." Him. Ning Mingi was stunned and asked suspiciously, "Who is he?" "You know him too. Let's go see him later." Qin Feiyang said. "I know him too." Ning Mingi was even more puzzled. Qin Feiyang looked at Zhuge Mingyang and said, "The giant python can't remove the devil mark, which means that the people of the Heavenly Sun Empire and the Nether Palace are still in the Black Tortoise world?" "I really don't know about that. However, it did say that it would take the people of the Heavenly Sun Empire to a place. I also said the specific place just now, but the giant python didn't tell me. But according to my guess, if this place is not in the Black Tortoise world, then it should be a world similar to the Black Tortoise world." Zhuge Mingyang said. Qin Feiyang frowned and said, "You mean there is a second Black Tortoise world in the miracle?" "Here, everything is possible, don't you think so?" Zhuge Mingyang laughed. Qin Feiyang frowned. "I can only think of these two possibilities. Either there really is a second Black Tortoise world, or Mu Tianyang and the others are still in the Black Tortoise world, but it's too hidden and we can't find them." Zhuge Mingyang said. Qin Feiyang scanned the area and shook his head. "This place is really giving me a headache. Lu Mu, come here for a moment." Whoosh! Willow Tree flashed to Qin Feiyang's side and asked, "What's the matter?" Qin Feiyang took out Chang Shui and said, "Here, Chang Shui. Stay here and watch out for the Guardian's sneak attack." Willow Tree took Chang Shui and asked, "What about you?" Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed and said, "I'm going to Soul Ceiling Valley to confirm something." Willow Tree hurriedly said, "Then give me Chang Shui. What if the Guardian attacks you?" "I have the castle. It can't do anything to me. Besides, Soul Ceiling Valley is just ahead. If you hear the commotion, you can bring people to rescue us." Qin Feiyang said. "Us?" Willow Tree was stunned and asked suspiciously, "Who else is going?" Qin Feiyang said, "Ning Mingi." Li Yun said, "Although I don't know what you're going to do, I'll go with you." Zhuge Mingyang smiled and said, "Me too." With my current strength, I can help you. Qin Feiyang glanced at Zhuge Mingyang and said indifferently, only Ning Mingi and I will go. The rest of you stay here. After that, he looked at Ning Mingi and said, let's go. Ning Mingi nodded. With a wave of his hand, he took Qin Feiyang to the sky and rushed towards Soul Ceiling Valley like lightning. If you don't let me go, I'll go and take a look. Zhuge Mingyang sneered and was about to chase after them. Don't move or I'll kill you. But at this moment, Willow Tree grabbed Chang Shui and put it on Zhuge Mingyang's neck. Seeing this scene, Zhao Tailai and the others gathered in the center of the square also surrounded them. Are you sure you can kill me? The corner of Zhuge Mingyang's mouth curled up, and there was a trace of mockery that couldn't be removed. Before his voice fell, he disappeared into thin air without warning. Willow Tree's face changed. He quickly took out the image crystal and sent a message to Qin Feiyang. This place was a plain. Aeon City was located in the center of the plain, and Soul Ceiling Valley was at the end of the plain. Therefore, Qin Feiyang and Ning Mingi were about to reach Soul Ceiling Valley. Bas! The image crystal suddenly rang. Qin Feiyang took out the image crystal, and Willow Tree's shadow immediately appeared. He shouted, Young Master, Zhuge Mingyang is following them. Be careful. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and said, I know. After that, he turned off the image crystal, turned around and scanned the void. His eyes flashed with a cold light. Bas! Suddenly, the image crystal's buzzing sound rang again. But it was not Qin Feiyang's image crystal, but Ning Mingi's. Ning Mingi took out the image crystal from his arms. A black-clothed middle-aged man quickly appeared in the void. This person was about 1.8 meters tall and had an ordinary appearance. He was only a 9-star war emperor. It's you? Why are you looking for me? When Ning Mingi saw the middle-aged man, his expression was a little surprised and he asked suspiciously. Alliance Master, something bad has happened. Just now, someone sent a message from the Devil's Land, saying that the stone gate of the Devil's Land has disappeared. The middle-aged man shouted. What stone gate? Ning Mingi was puzzled. It's the entrance to the Black Tortoise Realm. The middle-aged man said. What? The entrance disappeared. Ning Mingi's gaze trembled and he roared. Say it again. The entrance has disappeared. The middle-aged man said. Ning Mingi was like a bolt from the blue on the spot. His body and mind trembled, and his mind rumbled. Qin Feiyang was the same. His face instantly turned pale, and even his vision turned black. Chapter 1631. Is the news true? After a while, Ning Mingi came back to his senses and asked the middle-aged man. It's true. The middle-aged man said. Damn it! Ning Mingi roared. The entrance had existed for so many years. How could it disappear for no reason? It must be the Guardian's doing. This move is really ruthless. Zhuge Mingyang appeared inside. Weren't you with it at first? Didn't it tell you to destroy the entrance? Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. No. Zhuge Mingyang shook his head. Qin Feiyang sneered. Then do you regret being with us now? Of course. Why was I so stupid to be with you? If I was with the python, I would have left the Black Tortoise world long ago. Zhuge Mingi was extremely annoyed. It's useless to regret. Now, even if we remove the devil mark, we can't leave the Black Tortoise world. Ning Mingi sighed and put away the image crystal. What did you say? Remove the devil mark. Zhuge Mingyang was surprised. Ning Mingi said impatiently, I said even if the devil mark can be removed, I didn't say it can be removed. Qin Feiyang glanced at Zhuge Mingyang, then looked at Ning Mingi and asked, Who was that person just now? Is his information reliable? He's the city lord of a small city in the northern part of the Black Tortoise world. For some reason, I have a personal relationship with him, so he shouldn't lie to me. Ning Mingi said. Qin Feiyang nodded and pondered for a while, then looked at Zhuge Mingyang and said, Why don't you go to the Devil's Land to take a look? You have so many subordinates, but you don't want them to go. Why do you want me to go? Zhuge Mingyang said unhappily. Qin Feiyang said, They don't have powerful spatial divine items. What if they run to the Devil's Land and get caught by the Guardian? Then you can go too. Zhuge Mingyang said. I have something to do and can't leave. Qin Feiyang frowned. What is it? Could it be because of this Soul Seal Valley? Are there any secrets hidden inside? Zhuge Mingyang was curious. Aren't you annoying? Whether you go to the Devil's Land or not, don't follow me. Qin Feiyang said. I followed you? Is Soul Sealing Valley your home? Are you the only one who can enter? Zhuge Mingyang teased. Ning Mingi said angrily, Why are you so unreasonable? Soul Sealing Valley is my home, so it's naturally the young master's home. What does it have to do with you? Hehe. Looks like there really is some secret hidden here. Zhuge Mingyang smiled playfully. Qin Feiyang was incomparably annoyed. He looked at Ning Mingi and said, Let's go to the Devil's Land. All right. Ning Mingi nodded and opened a portal. The two walked in one after another. Zhuge Mingyang did not follow in. He looked up at Soul Sealing Valley and sneered, I'd like to see what secrets there are inside. Whoosh! Before his voice faded, he turned into a stream of light and disappeared into Soul Sealing Valley. The River of Erosion. The bridge. Qin Feiyang and Zhuge Mingi appeared out of thin air. Ning Mingi frowned and said, Young master, I always feel that this Zhuge Mingyang's purpose of following us is not simple. I know. He must be planning something. Maybe he's looking for an opportunity to let me kill him. Qin Feiyang said. Let you kill him? What do you mean? Ning Mingi was suspicious. Let's talk as we walk. Qin Feiyang said. The two crossed the stone bridge one after another and entered the Devil's Land. On the way, Qin Feiyang briefly told Ning Mingi about Zhuge Mingyang's situation. After listening, Ning Mingi was shocked. There was such a thing in the world? He died once and was resurrected again, and his strength was soaring crazily. He didn't even need to comprehend the profound meaning of becoming a god and directly stepped into the false god realm. This was too strange. Ning Mingi asked, Young master, what kind of demonic art did this Zhuge Mingyang cultivate? I don't know. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Then it seems that we have to be more careful when facing him in the future. Ning Mingi whispered. Qin Feiyang nodded and turned to stare at Ning Mingi, saying, Let me ask you again, do you and Li Yun really not have a 9th grade alchemy fire? No. Ning Mingi shook his head like pounding garlic. Let me tell you, I can peek into your inner thoughts through the enslavement seal. But because I respect and trust you, I didn't do that. So I want to say, please don't let me down. Qin Feiyang said. Ning Mingi looked a little hesitant. In fact, Willow Tree has already told me that there are people in the Vanga League and the Vanga League who have a 9th grade alchemy fire. But do you know why I didn't expose it in front of you in Aeon City? Qin Feiyang said. Why? Ning Mingi looked at him suspiciously. Qin Feiyang said, After all, there are so many people present, I have to save face for you. Ning Mingi smiled bitterly and nodded, saying, Okay, I admit, Li Yun and I do have a 9th grade alchemy fire. After that, Ning Mingi stopped, and a stream of light swept out from between his eyebrows. It was a palm-sized alchemy fire. But it was different from other alchemy fires. This alchemy fire was reddish-gold in color, dazzling and giving people a piercing sharpness. Although Li Yun and I have a 9th grade alchemy fire, because we can't find a 9th grade alchemy furnace, we have never used the 9th grade alchemy fire to refine elixirs all these years. Ning Mingi said regretfully. Qin Feiyang said, At least you are honest. Ning Mingi smiled embarrassedly and gritted his teeth, saying, Here you go. No need, you can keep it first. Anyway, I don't need it now. Qin Feiyang said. Don't need it? Ning Mingi was taken aback. Yes. First, I don't have a 9th grade alchemy furnace. Second, every time the Nether Devil Flame is upgraded, it needs 3 alchemy fires of the same level. Even with Li Yun's 9th grade alchemy fire, there are only 2 alchemy fires. It's not enough. Qin Feiyang said. I see. Then you have to be mentally prepared. Although this 9th grade alchemy fire is not comparable to a divine artifact, it is rarer than a divine artifact. It can only be found by chance. Li Yun and I found our 9th grade alchemy fires in the divine ruins. And I haven't found the Black Tortoise realm yet. Ning Mingi said. Qin Feiyang nodded. Ning Mingi put away his alchemy fire and asked curiously, What about Li Yun's alchemy fire? Do you plan to let him give it to you? A forcibly picked melon is not sweet. I will let him take the initiative to give it to me, Qin Feiyong said with a smile. A few hours later, the two finally entered the central area of the Devil's Land. Here, they could already sense the aura of pseudo-god-level beasts. Qin Feiyong wondered if he should kill a ferocious beast now and see if he could remove the devil imprint. But after thinking about it, he gave up on this idea. It was better not to alert the enemy. A moment later, the two landed in the sky above the square, and their expressions suddenly sank. The stone gate in the square had indeed disappeared. Ning Mingi sighed. Young master, I'm afraid even you will be trapped in this place for the rest of your life. This beast is really despicable. Qin Feiyong snorted coldly, took out the image crystal, and sent a message to Willow Tree. Willow Tree's shadow appeared. Qin Feiyong said, Has Zhuge Mingyang returned? Willow Tree nodded and said, He came back a long time ago, and now he seems to be in his space divine object. Where are you now? Qin Feiyong said, We are in the Devil's Land. Did the stone gate disappear? Willow Tree asked. Li Yun and the others also quickly gathered around, looking nervously at Qin Feiyong. Obviously, Zhuge Mingyang had already told everyone. It disappeared, Qin Feiyong said. Damn it! Everyone was furious. Willow Tree looked at Qin Feiyong and asked, What should we do now? Don't panic. There's always a way out. Qin Feiyong comforted, turned off the image crystal, glanced at the square, and said to Ning Mingi, Let's go to the Soul-Sealing Valley. When the two arrived at the Soul-Sealing Valley, the sky was already dark. In the Soul-Sealing Valley, there was a white mist, which made the huge valley even more mysterious. Ning Mingi asked suspiciously, Who are we looking for here? No one knew the Soul-Sealing Valley better than him. Except for his Vanga League people, there was no one else here. Qin Feiyong said, Let's go in first. Ning Mingi hurriedly said, No, your cultivation is not enough. You will be petrified if you go in. I won't. Qin Feiyong smiled and stepped into the Soul-Sealing Valley. But unexpectedly, his body quickly petrified and turned into a stone statue in the blink of an eye. Didn't you say that I won't be petrified? Ning Mingi was stunned and quickly rushed to Qin Feiyong's side, hugged the petrified Qin Feiyong, and prepared to leave the Soul-Sealing Valley. Because as long as he was in the Soul-Sealing Valley, the petrification state would immediately disappear. But just as he was about to leave the entrance, Ning Mingi suddenly stopped. He put down the petrified Qin Feiyong and looked at Qin Feiyong's face, with a cold light in his eyes. As the former owner of the Soul-Sealing Valley, he naturally knew the effect of petrification. A petrified person would have no consciousness or perception, no different from a real stone statue. For him, this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. He was thinking, should he kill Qin Feiyong now? If he killed Qin Feiyong, he could regain his freedom, and nothing would change. He was still the leader of the Vanga League. He dominated the Black Tortoise world. But he really wanted to leave the Black Tortoise world and the miracle. After being trapped here for so many years, he had really had enough. But he was thinking, now that the stone door had disappeared, would Qin Feiyong still have a way to take him away? Also, if he really killed Qin Feiyong, what would happen if the Guardian came to take revenge on him? Because no matter what, he had already offended the Guardian, and that was an indisputable fact. He was constantly struggling in his heart. Fine. I'll take a gamble on him. Ning Mingi gritted his teeth, picked up the petrified Qin Feiyong again, and was about to leave. But at this moment, boom! A rule force descended from the sky, charging toward the two like lightning. This is... Ning Mingi turned pale with fright. The Guardian was hiding in the dark? At the same time, Willow Tree and the others also sensed the aura of the rule force, and hurriedly rose into the air, looking toward the Soul-Sealing Valley. As soon as he saw the rule force, Willow Tree's expression changed, and he hurriedly rushed toward the Soul-Sealing Valley. Li Yun and the others also followed. Qin Feiyong cannot die. Chapter 1632. Damn it! Why was I hesitating just now? If I didn't hesitate, I would have retreated with Qin Feiyong. His petrification must have been lifted by now. Then now, we can also hide in the castle. Ning Mingi was in despair. It was too late to regret. However, just as the rule force blasted down, accompanied by a loud bang, the castle rushed out from between Qin Feiyong's eyebrows. An invisible force surged toward the rule force like an avalanche. In an instant, time seemed to be still. The rule force stopped in the void, motionless. Damn it! An angry curse sounded from the top of the sky. It was the giant python. Hearing the voice of the giant python, Ning Mingi looked up and roared, "You are also a guardian, can't you be a little more above board?" Humph! The giant python snorted coldly and instantly disappeared without a trace. The rule force also quickly dissipated. Ning Mingi hurriedly carried the petrified Qin Feiyong and retreated from the soul-sealing valley. His whole body was dripping with cold sweat and fear. First, it was because of the guardian. Second, it was because of the castle. If he really wanted to kill Qin Feiyong before, the castle would definitely take the initiative to protect him. At that time, with Qin Feiyong's character, he would definitely not let him off easily. Thank goodness. He didn't do that. After leaving the soul-sealing valley, Qin Feiyong's petrified state quickly disappeared. His eyes were full of confusion. Looking at the castle, he looked at Ning Mingi and asked, "What happened just now? Why did the castle wake up?" "Just as you entered the soul-sealing valley, you were immediately petrified. I was about to bring you out, but the guardian came. It was the castle that saved us." Ning Mingi laughed. "You're really haunting me." Qin Feiyong was extremely angry. Whoosh! At this time, Willow Tree and the others came through the air. Willow Tree quickly asked, "Young master, are you okay?" "I'm fine." Qin Feiyong waved his hand, and with a thought, the ancient castle disappeared into his glabella. "It's good that you're okay." Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Qin Feiyong looked up at Soul-Sealing Valley, a trace of suspicion in the depths of his eyes. What did this mysterious man mean? Wasn't it supposed to be a collaboration? Why was he petrified? "Little brother, I'm sorry." But suddenly, the mysterious man's voice sounded in Qin Feiyong's mind. "What do you mean?" Qin Feiyong thought. "Originally, I wanted to come out to see you, but I suddenly realized that the guardian was watching you from above. If I don't petrify you, it will definitely be able to tell," the mysterious man said. "I see." Qin Feiyong suddenly understood. The mysterious man transmitted his voice. "Other than the protectors, you also have to be careful of Ning Mingi." "Be careful of Ning Mingi?" Qin Feiyong was taken aback. "Yes. After you were petrified, he could have brought you out in time." However, he hesitated, and his eyes were filled with killing intent towards you, the mysterious man said. Qin Feiyong glanced at Ning Mingi. A cold glint flashed in his eyes. The mysterious man said, "Little brother, why did you come looking for me?" Qin Feiyong said, "The stone gate to leave the Black Tortoise Realm has disappeared. I wanted to ask you, is there any other way to leave the Black Tortoise Realm?" "What? The stone gate disappeared?" The mysterious man was shocked. "Yes," Qin Feiyong thought. "This stinky snake is really vicious. It's obvious that it wants to trap you here." The mysterious man said, "I know, that's why I came looking for you." Qin Feiyong transmitted his voice. The mysterious man went silent for a while, then said, "There is no other exit from the Black Tortoise Realm, but I do have a way to leave." "How do we leave?" Qin Feiyong quickly asked. The mysterious man said, "At the end of the desert, there is a palace." "The end of the desert?" Qin Feiyong was stunned, then asked, "Are you talking about the desert in the depths of the departed Spirit Mountain Range?" "Yes," the mysterious man said. "If you can find that palace, you can leave the Black Tortoise Realm, but..." At this point, the mysterious man's words stopped abruptly. "But what?" Qin Feiyong asked. The mysterious man said, "Normal people can't open the gate to the palace, only the creator can do so, not even the guardian can." Qin Feiyong's face twitched, thinking, then isn't that the same as saying nothing? Even the guardian couldn't open the gate to the palace, let alone him. No. You shouldn't be discouraged. You should think of a way to open the gate to the palace. Because there is a supreme treasure hidden inside the palace. With that supreme treasure, you can control the Black Tortoise Realm. The mysterious man said. What? Control the Black Tortoise Realm? Qin Feiyong was shocked. Yes. The mysterious man said. Qin Feiyang was shocked. Are you sure you're not joking with me? I'm sure. The mysterious man said with absolute certainty. Qin Feiyang was extremely excited. Control the Black Tortoise Realm. He had never thought of this before. Moreover, when you control the Black Tortoise Realm, not only can you escape, you can also directly remove the devil mark on everyone. Of course. The Guardian won't let you barge in easily, but I believe that you will definitely have a way. The mysterious man said. Qin Feiyang was even more tempted when he heard that. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something and said to himself, if the Guardian notices my motive and moves the supreme treasure out of the Black Tortoise Realm in advance, what should I do? The mysterious man smiled. It doesn't have the ability to do so, because that supreme treasure, other than the master of the Black Tortoise Realm, no one can take it out of the Black Tortoise Realm. The master of the Black Tortoise Realm? Wait. The master of the Black Tortoise Realm should be the creator of the miracle. Then you're asking me to snatch it from the creator. Qin Feiyang said. Don't worry. The creator is not in the miracle. Moreover, to the creator, a mere Black Tortoise Realm won't bother him at all. As long as you have the ability, the Black Tortoise Realm will be yours. The mysterious man said. Qin Feiyang said to himself, don't lie to me, this isn't child's play. The mysterious man said helplessly, if you can obtain the Black Tortoise Realm, it's also a good thing for me, why would I lie to you? Good thing? Could it be that when I obtain the Black Tortoise Realm, you can break the seal and regain your freedom? Qin Feiyang said. The mysterious man said, it's not as simple as you say, these things can wait until you obtain the Black Tortoise Realm. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and said to himself, all right, I'll give it a try, can you let me go to the land of inheritance now? What's the rush? Once you obtain that supreme treasure, everything here will be yours. Naturally, that includes the land of inheritance. And if you want to come in now, then I will definitely petrify you, otherwise the Guardian will not let me go. The mysterious man said. All right. Last question. You told me earlier that the hearts of the pseudo-god level beasts in the Black Tortoise Realm can remove the devil mark. Is that true? Qin Feiyang transmitted his voice. Of course it's true. The mysterious man replied. That's good. After I go into seclusion for a while, I will go to the end of the desert and look for that palace. Qin Feiyang said to himself. Good luck. After the mysterious man finished speaking, his voice never sounded again. The conversation between the two was carried out in secret, so Willow Tree and the others next to them did not know about it. However, they were all puzzled. Qin Feiyang looked at the soul-sealing valley motionlessly and did not say a word. What was he trying to do? Let's go back. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang retracted his gaze and looked at everyone with a smile. Go back. In the crowd, Zhuge Mingyang was stunned. He also rushed over when the giant python appeared. Originally, he thought that Qin Feiyang must have some reason to enter the soul-sealing valley, but he did not expect that he was going to go back. Qin Feiyang also glanced at Zhuge Mingyang, his eyes flashing, and walked forward with a smile. Did you find anything when you entered the soul-sealing valley? I didn't go in. Zhuge Mingyang said. When Ning Mingi and I went to the Devil's Land, you didn't enter the soul-sealing valley? Who are you lying to? Qin Feiyang sneered. Zhuge Mingyang chuckled and said, I really can't hide anything from you. Yes, I did go in and found a strange place. What place? Qin Feiyang said. In the deepest part of the soul-sealing valley, there is a stone tower. I sensed a very terrifying aura inside. But there is a seal on the stone tower. I tried my best, but I couldn't break this seal. Zhuge Mingyang frowned. Stone tower? Seal. Qin Feiyang was surprised. Zhuge Mingyang looked at Qin Feiyang's expression and said, Don't tell me you don't know. I really don't know. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Zhuge Mingyang was slightly taken aback and puzzled. Then why did you enter the soul-sealing valley? Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Nothing, I'm just curious about the soul-sealing valley. Just curious? Zhuge Mingyang was stunned. Was that so? But why did he feel that this reason was really hard to believe? Back in the square, Ning Mingi asked, Young master, what do we do next? Qin Feiyang said with a faint smile, I'm going to cultivate in seclusion, you guys continue to stew. You still have the mood to cultivate in seclusion? Ning Mingi was really speechless. Did this young master know what the situation was now? We'll cross the bridge when we get there. There's nothing to worry about. Qin Feiyong smiled faintly and ignored everyone. He directly entered the ancient castle and continued to copy the last stroke of the Xing character formula. Relying on the divine flesh of the giant python, his cultivation base was lucky enough to break through to the 8-star combat emperor. When he finished copying the last stroke of the Xing character formula, he would be able to step into the 9-star combat emperor realm. Then, he would take the 5 elements universe pill and directly enter the peak combat emperor realm. He was only one step away from the false god realm. Outside, Zhuge Mingyang glanced at Ning Mingi's group and shook his head. If you follow this bastard, you'll be killed by him sooner or later. Don't fan the flames here. If you have the ability, take us out of the Black Tortoise boundary. Willow Tree snorted coldly. You still don't believe me? Then wait and see. Sooner or later, you'll know how wrong your decision to follow Qin Feiyong is. Zhuge Mingyang sneered and also entered the spatial divine item. Sigh. How worrisome. Ning Mingi sighed deeply. The others' faces were also full of worry. Chapter 1633. Time flew by. A month passed. The snake soup outside was finally done stewing. The god-meat snake soup that was simmered over a slow fire was truly delicious. Everyone's appetite was whetted as they ate bowl after bowl. Fatso and the others naturally wouldn't miss out on such delicacies, and also ran out to eat and drink. Only Qin Feiyong stayed in the castle to cultivate silently. Although the snake soup was delicious, it was no longer able to increase everyone's cultivation. However, it could still strengthen their physique. Whether it was Ning Mingi and the others or Fatso and the others, they could all kill people of the same realm in an instant. Another month passed. Boom. On this day, Qin Feiyong's entire body suddenly emitted a huge aura. His cultivation soared straight to the 9-star War Emperor. At the same time, the attainment character under his fingertips shot out rays of dazzling divine light. Following closely, the attainment character turned into a ray of light and entered Qin Feiyong's glabella like lightning. Fatso opened his eyes, looked at Qin Feiyong, and asked, "Boss, how do you feel?" Qin Feiyong closed the iron book and smiled. "I haven't tried it yet, how would I know how it feels?" "Then quickly go out and try it," Fatso urged. Qin Feiyong nodded, his figure flashed, and appeared in the plaza outside. A month ago, after eating the snake soup, everyone cultivated in the plaza, using the ability of the god meat to temper their bodies. Sensing Qin Feiyong's aura, Ning Mingi, Li Yun, and Willow Tree immediately opened their eyes. And upon seeing Qin Feiyong, the 3 of them were stunned. "What's wrong?" Qin Feiyong was suspicious. Li Yun asked, "Brother Qin, did you break through?" Qin Feiyong nodded and asked doubtfully, "Is there a problem?" "Of course there's a problem. 2 months ago, you just broke through to the 8-star War Emperor, and now you're breaking through again. This is too fast," Li Yun said. 2 months? Qin Feiyong was stunned and then shook his head with a wry smile. In fact, 600 days had passed in the ancient castle, which was almost 2 years. 600 days had passed in the castle, but only 2 months had passed outside. Breaking through from an 8-star combat emperor to a 9-star combat emperor in 2 months was indeed a little too ridiculous. Maybe it's because I'm lucky. Qin Feiyong thought for a while and said with a smile. "Good luck." Li Yun was speechless. What did luck have to do with cultivation? Qin Feiyong smiled and said, "Let's not talk about this first. Which one of you wants to compete with me in speed?" Compete in speed? The 3 of them were stunned. The Willow Tree said strangely, "Young master, we are all fake gods. Are you sure you want to compete with us in speed?" "I'll give it a try. Let's see who gets to Soul Ceiling Valley first," Qin Feiyong said. Li Yun stood up, looked at Qin Feiyong, and said with a smile, "Brother Qin, it's not that I want to criticize you, but you're overestimating yourself. Competing with us in speed is simply asking for a beating." Qin Feiyong said, "Cut the crap, come on." "Okay, I'll satisfy you. I'll compete with you. We're competing to see who gets to Soul Ceiling Valley first, right?" Li Yun asked. Qin Feiyang nodded. Li Yun walked to Qin Feiyang's side, stood side by side, and said, "Why don't you set off first, and I'll catch up with you after 5 breaths?" Qin Feiyang was helpless. Li Yun smiled and said, "I'm doing this for your own good. Otherwise, when I win later, you'll say that I bullied you. Don't give me that. Let's set off together, let's go." Qin Feiyang shouted in a low voice and activated the attainment formula. Divine light burst out from under his feet. When he took off his shoes, everyone could see that the word attainment had appeared on the soles of his feet. Swish! As he took a step forward, he instantly disappeared from everyone's line of sight. Li Yun was stunned. This speed was actually faster than a 9-star combat emperor at the peak realm. And it was not just a little faster. What's going on? He disappeared with a single step. Why does this look like the legendary teleportation? Ning Mingi and Willow Tree also looked at each other. When Li Yun came back to his senses, he hurriedly rushed into the sky and rushed towards Soul Ceiling Valley. But when he arrived at the entrance of Soul Ceiling Valley, Qin Feiyang was already waiting there. Qin Feiyang said unhappily, "Didn't I ask you to set off together?" "Wait. Your speed is abnormal." "Without a trace, why does it look like teleportation?" Li Yun frowned. Flying in the air, no matter how fast one was, even if one used an auxiliary divine art, there would still be traces left behind. Only the legendary teleportation could disappear without a trace. Qin Feiyang smiled and did not answer. He said, "Let's compete again and see who gets to the square first." "Okay." Li Yun nodded and walked to Qin Feiyang's side. He took a deep breath and looked at Qin Feiyang. "We can set off at any time. This time." He did not dare to be careless and took it very seriously. "Let's go." Qin Feiyang roared, used the attainment formula, and instantly disappeared without a trace. It's really teleportation. Li Yun also broke through the air at the same time. Looking at the empty void in front of him, his eyes were filled with disbelief. Whoosh! Swish! But in the end, the first to arrive at the square was still Li Yun. However, Qin Feiyang was not far behind. In less than 3 breaths of time after Li Yun arrived at the square, Qin Feiyang also appeared on the square. However, although Li Yun arrived first, Li Yun's face was filled with disbelief. Although Qin Feiyang's speed was a little slower than his, it was actually not much different. Ning Mingi looked at Qin Feiyang and Li Yun and asked, "Did you guys set off together?" "Yes." Li Yun nodded. "How is this possible?" Ning Mingi's face was also filled with shock. "Young master, are you sure you are only a 9-star war emperor? You didn't hide your cultivation from us?" Willow Tree also had a look of disbelief. "I want to hide my cultivation." Qin Feiyang was speechless. Hearing this, Willow Tree and the other two looked at each other. With the cultivation of a 9-star war emperor, his speed was almost comparable to them. Fake gods? This was too ridiculous. The others also stood up and looked at Qin Feiyang in shock. Especially Zhao Ximing, Ning Yifeng, and Li Chong. Their eyes were about to pop out. Li Chong swallowed his saliva and said, "Uncle Qin, can we compete?" "Sure." Qin Feiyang nodded. Li Chong hurriedly ran to Qin Feiyang's side and nodded to Qin Feiyang. "Let's go." The two set off at the same time. Ning Mingi and the others also soared into the sky and looked at the two of them. Soon, the group of people were all dumbfounded. Because they saw that when Qin Feiyang rushed to the Soul Ceiling Valley and rushed back from the Soul Ceiling Valley, Li Chong was still halfway to the Soul Ceiling Valley. In other words, Qin Feiyang had already made a round trip and Li Chong had not yet arrived at the Soul Ceiling Valley. Moreover, Li Chong also used a perfect auxiliary battle art. Chonger's cultivation is higher than yours, and he even used an auxiliary battle art, but his speed is actually so much worse than yours? How did you do it? Li Yun looked at Qin Feiyang and asked. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "I just mastered an auxiliary divine art." Auxiliary divine art? Everyone was stunned. Even if it was an auxiliary divine art, it couldn't be so ridiculous. After a while, Li Chong finally ran back breathlessly, shook his head with a wry smile, and cupped his hands. "Uncle Qin, this nephew admires you." Qin Feiyang smiled helplessly. This kid, the more he called him, the smoother it got. Willow Tree gathered his thoughts and said, Young master, back to the topic, more than 2 months have passed, you have to hurry up. You mean the devil mark? Qin Feiyong asked. Yes. Now you only have 3 months left. If you can't find a way to leave the Black Tortoise realm in these 3 months, then you... Willow Tree said this and did not continue, because he believed that Qin Feiyong could understand. Qin Feiyong waved his hand and said, even if the devil mark appears, it doesn't matter, but it's time to set off, get ready. Where are we going? Willow Tree asked. The end of the desert. Qin Feiyong said, his eyes flashing. What? The end of the desert? Are you sure you're not joking? Back then, Ning Mingi and I spent half a year, but we still couldn't find the end of the desert. Li Yun hurriedly said. Yes. Since ancient times, the Black Tortoise realm has given birth to countless experts, but no one knows how big and deep the desert is. It's very likely that there's no end. Moreover, even if there is an end, we won't be able to reach it. Because the storm in the depths of the desert is enough to threaten the lives of us false gods. Ning Mingi followed. Counter soldiers with arms, water with an earth weir. Qin Feiyong smiled faintly and entered the castle. Looking at Dan Wang Kai standing in front of the pill furnace, he asked, do you have the 5 elements universe pill? Yes. Last time I tried to refine a few, but they all had 5 pill patterns. Dan Wang Kai said. 5 pill patterns only had an average success rate. But now, the Netherworld demonic flame had been upgraded to the 9th grade. Without a 9th grade pill furnace, he couldn't start refining pills at all. After pondering for a while, Qin Feiyong said, take it out for me to try, I hope I'm lucky enough to break through to the peak. If he had known, he should have refined some 5 elements universe pills in advance. Dan Wang Kai nodded, took out a jade box from his Chenkuan bag and handed it to Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong grabbed the jade box and opened the lid. A surge of majestic 5 elements elemental energy immediately gushed out. The 5 elements universe pill was made from the essence of the 4th fire, the essence of the Kuei water, the essence of the 2nd wood, the essence of the 6th earth, and the refinement of the 8th metal. Therefore, there was no medicinal fragrance. He looked down at the jade box. Inside the jade box, there were 4 pills lying quietly. They were only the size of pellets, and they were 5-colored, like colorful gems. Qin Feiyong grabbed a 5 elements universe pill, looked at it for a while, and put it in his mouth. Then he returned the jade box to Dan Wang Kai, sat cross-legged on the ground, and closed his eyes. Boom! Just as he closed his eyes, the energy of the 5 elements universe pill burst out in his body. The power of the 5 elements surged like angry waves, rushing to his limbs and bones. A sharp pain suddenly swept through his body. The huge energy seemed to be tearing his body apart. He gritted his teeth and persisted. As the energy continued to melt, it merged with his body and battled qi. Boom! All of a sudden, his aura broke out of his body uncontrollably. And it was getting stronger and stronger. My luck can't be so good, right? Dan Wang Kai murmured. The 5 elements universe pill with 5 pill patterns, half of the success and half of the failure, completely depended on luck. If he was lucky, he would succeed in 1 try. If he was unlucky, he might not succeed in several or even dozens of tries. And now. Chapter 1634. However, there were often too many accidents in things. Seeing that Qin Feiyong was about to succeed, the soaring momentum suddenly stopped. Failed. Dan Wang Kai was stunned. Qin Feiyong also opened his eyes, full of helplessness. He looked at Dan Wang Kai and said, again. Dan Wang Kai nodded, took out a 5 elements universe elixir and handed it to Qin Feiyong. But the result? Failed again. Again. Still failed. Again. But the best result was still a failure. What's the situation? I actually failed 4 times? Qin Feiyong was very depressed. Didn't Uncle Yuan say that he was a person with great luck? Then where was his luck now? Young master, my alchemy fire is now a 7th grade alchemy fire. Why don't you refine one? Dan Wang Kai asked. Qin Feiyong could refine an elixir with 6 elixir patterns with a 7th grade alchemy fire. Although there was only 1 more pattern, the success rate would greatly increase. 7th grade alchemy fire? Qin Feiyong was stunned and lowered his head to ponder. Over the years, He had been thinking about improving the Netherworld Devil Flame and completely ignored Dan Wangcai's problem. Since Dan Wangcai followed him, he had been helping him to refine elixirs, which saved him a lot of time. He should find a higher-grade alchemy fire for Dan Wangcai. Thinking of this, he got up and looked at Dan Wangcai, smiling. Let's talk about this later. After that, he appeared in the square outside. Everyone was ready, waiting for Qin Feiyong to come out. Qin Feiyong looked at Willow Tree and said, "Except for Ning Mingi, the rest of the Vanga League are all sent to your Space Divine Object." My Space Divine Object? Willow Tree was stunned. Qin Feiyong said, "Didn't I give you Li Chang's Spatial Divine item last time?" Hearing Qin Feiyong suddenly mention this matter, Li Chang, who was standing in the crowd, had an awkward expression. "Yeah. Look at my memory, I actually forgot about this." Willow Tree slapped his head in realization. Qin Feiyong shook his head and smiled. Then, he looked at Li Yun and said, "Send your people into the Spatial Divine item as well. It's troublesome to have too many people. The few of us will be fine outside." "All right." Li Yun nodded. "Actually, you can also enter my Spatial Divine item. This Spatial Divine item of mine is quite big." At this moment, Zhuge Mingyang appeared out of thin air, looked at Li Yun and mocked her. "Are you dreaming?" Li Yun sneered. With a wave of her hand, everyone from Fengtian Palace disappeared instantly. Willow Tree also sent Li Chang and the others into the Spatial Divine item. The square suddenly became deserted. Only Qin Feiyong, Willow Tree, Ning Mingi, Li Yun, and Zhuge Mingyang were left. Willow Tree suddenly said, "Young master, have you also forgotten one thing?" "What?" Qin Feiyong was suspicious. Willow Tree said with a sneaky smile, "Your little lover Wang Yu er." "Yes, and her." Qin Feiyong slapped his head, then glared at Willow Tree and said angrily, "What nonsense are you talking about? What little lover? Isn't it?" Willow Tree smiled sinisterly. Qin Feiyong rolled his eyes, took out the image crystal stone, and sent a message to Wang Yu. However, Wang Yu did not respond. "What's going on?" Qin Feiyong frowned and sent another message. Time passed breath by breath. Zhuge Mingyang's eyes flashed slightly. He looked at Qin Feiyong and said, "I have an ominous feeling." Qin Feiyong's eyelids twitched. He looked up at Zhuge Mingyang and said in a deep voice, "What do you want to say?" Zhuge Mingyang said, "Don't you already know in your heart? Why are you still asking me?" "Impossible. The Guardian doesn't know her relationship with me at all." Qin Feiyong said. "The Guardian doesn't know, but Mu Tianyang and Mu Qing know. They hate you to the core. It's not strange for them to tell the Guardian, right?" Zhuge Mingyang said. Qin Feiyong's face was as dark as water. Even if the giant python knows the relationship between Wang Yu and young master, it doesn't know where Wang Yu is. "Can you not make trouble here?" Willow Tree glared at Zhuge Mingyang. "Wrong, wrong, wrong. Let's not talk about the Guardian first. Mu Qing can easily find Wang Yu's whereabouts. I believe Brother Qin knows this better than me." Zhuge Mingyang laughed. "Shut up." Qin Feiyong shouted angrily and continued to send messages to Wang Yu. But after waiting for a while, there was still no response. Could it be as Zhuge Mingyang said, that Wang Yu had fallen into the hands of the Guardian? Qin Feiyong clenched his hands, looked at Ning Mingi and Li Yun, and asked, "Who in your Vanga League and Fengtian Palace has established a contract bridge with Wang Yuanshan?" "Young master, are you confused? Aren't the 6 elders right beside us? They and Wang Yuanshan are all elders of the main tower. They must have established a contract bridge with each other," Willow Tree said. Qin Feiyong shivered and hurriedly entered the castle. "He's not confused. He's confused. He's confused because he's concerned. It means that Wang Yu still has some weight in his heart. No. I should say that she's quite important." Zhuge Mingyang smiled playfully. "How do you know? Are you a roundworm in his stomach?" Willow Tree looked at him in disgust. "Of course I know. Because I know him too well. He's a very, very calm person. I've never seen him so flustered even when facing a fake god." Zhuge Mingyang said. "In that case, young master's cold heart has indeed melted Wang Yu." Willow Tree murmured. In the castle, The 6 elders stood in front of Qin Feiyang and tried to send messages to Wang Yuanshan one by one. However, just like Wang Yu, there was no response at all. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house stood up and looked at Qin Feiyang, saying, "Feiyang, forgive me for being blunt, but I'm afraid this is really bad." "You don't have to worry. I'll find out." Qin Feiyang smiled and left the castle. "How was it?" Willow Tree asked. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Their hearts sank as well. "You can actually send a message to Mu Qing. At the same time, you can also confirm whether he's still in the Black Tortoise world," Zhuge Mingyang said. Qin Feiyang heard this and immediately took out an image crystal to send a message to Mu Qing. However, it was like a stone sinking into the sea. "He didn't respond to you. This means that he and Mu Tianyang have really left the Black Tortoise world. If Wang Yuer and Wang Yuanshan really fell into the hands of the protectors, they must be with them now. Being outside the Black Tortoise world, they naturally can't receive your message," Zhuge Mingyang said. Willow Tree said angrily, "Can you stop talking? Can't I tell you the truth?" Zhuge Mingyang pursed his lips. "You talk too much." Willow Tree glared at Zhuge Mingyang, then looked at Qin Feiyang and smiled. "Young master, don't worry too much. If Wang Yu really fell into the hands of the protectors, they definitely won't kill her because they still need to use her to threaten you." Willow Tree's words are reasonable. Ning Mingi and Li Yun nodded. Qin Feiyang's gaze was uncertain. After a long time, he let out a long breath and looked at Ning Mingi and Li Yun, asking, "Where else in the Black Tortoise world can we find a grade 8 pill fire?" "What do you want a grade 8 pill fire for?" The two of them were suspicious. Qin Feiyang said, "Not only do I want a grade 8 pill fire, I also want a grade 8 pill furnace." Ning Mingi gritted his teeth and said, "I have a grade 8 pill furnace, I can give it to you." First a grade 8 pill fire, now a grade 8 pill furnace. How many things are you hiding behind my back? Didn't I say to give everything you have to Dan Wangkai and Lu Hong? Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and said angrily. If it wasn't for the incident in the Soul Sealing Valley, he wouldn't care. But this person wanted to harm him in the Soul Sealing Valley? So now, he had to start to doubt this person's loyalty. Ning Mingi's gaze trembled and he hurriedly said, "I swear, I only have a pill furnace left." "Take it out," Qin Feiyang said. Ning Mingi waved his hand, and a golden light swept out from between his eyebrows. It was a dazzling pill furnace, as if cast from gold, with a lifelike golden dragon engraved on it. This is the Golden Dragon Furnace, a genuine grade 8 pill furnace. After Ning Mingi wiped off the blood qi, he respectfully handed it to Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and sent it into the ancient castle, saying, "Dan Wangkai, this Golden Dragon Furnace is yours from now on." "Thank you, young master." Dan Wangkai in the ancient castle held the Golden Dragon Furnace. As if he had received a treasure, his face was full of joy. Qin Feiyang looked at Ning Mingi and asked, "What about the grade 8 pill fire?" "Grade 8 pill fire," Ning Mingi thought for a while and said, "As far as I know, other than us, it seems that only the City Lord of 7 Demon City has a cluster of grade 8 pill fire." 7 Demon City? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. "Young master, this 7 Demon City is very famous in the Black Tortoise world, but its bad name is spread far and wide. Because 7 Demon City is a place where dragons and snakes mix together, the people inside are basically all vicious and evil people. Especially the 7 demons, they bully men and women, kill people for their possessions, and commit all kinds of crimes. These 7 demons are 7 blood brothers, they all have the cultivation of false divinity, and the City Lord is the leader of the 7 demons. However, even though they often commit crimes, they still know their limits and have never infringed on the interests of us few big forces. Therefore, we also did not bother with them," Willow Tree explained. Qin Feiyang said, "Let's go to 7 Demon City immediately." "Okay." Willow Tree nodded, took out a teleportation gate and quickly opened it. After Qin Feiyang entered the teleportation gate, Willow Tree and the others followed in one after another. In the next moment, the few of them descended in the sky above a mountain range. The mountain range was long and undulating, with many towering peaks standing tall. And right below, there was a huge deep pit, filled with cracks and broken pieces. The surroundings of the deep pit were also filled with devastation. Qin Feiyang scanned the area below and asked suspiciously, Where is Seven Demon City? Wait. Willow Tree stretched out his hand. Immediately. He scanned the surrounding mountains and frowned slightly, then lowered his head to look at the deep pit below and said, That's right, this is Seven Demon City, but where is the city? Seven Demon City is indeed here. But how did it become a deep pit? Ning Mingi and Li Yun also said, their faces full of suspicion. Not only did they not see the city, they did not even see a single person. Zhuge Mingyang said, From the looks of it, the city seems to have been destroyed. You guys sense it carefully. There seems to be remnants of battle aura in the void here. Qin Feiyong and the other three sensed it carefully, and indeed, they could feel some aura. But it was very weak. They could not tell who had left the aura behind. From the situation below, this Seven Demon City has been destroyed for at least half a month. But other than the few of us, who else has the ability to destroy Seven Demon City? Ning Mingi scanned the deep pit, then looked up at Willow Tree and Li Yun, frowning and asking. Willow Tree and Li Yun shook their heads. They could not figure it out either. Because for the past 2 months, everyone had been in Aeon City and no one had left. The only one who was not with them, Netherworld Hall, had also been taken away by the Guardians 2 months ago. And the overall strength of Seven Demon City was second only to the few of them. Logically speaking, no one should be able to threaten Seven Demon City. Chapter 1635. Li Yun suddenly looked at a giant peak on the left and shouted, Who's there? Qin Feiyong, Willow Tree, Ning Mingi, and Zhuge Mingyang were shocked and turned their heads to look. That giant peak was about 1,000 feet high and was covered with vegetation. Someone's there. Ning Mingi was suspicious. I saw a figure just now, but it disappeared in the blink of an eye. Li Yun nodded. Qin Feiyong said, Let's go and take a look. Whoosh. The 5 of them cut through the sky and quickly flew above the giant peak, looking down at the peak. But other than the dense weeds and trees, they didn't see anyone. Qin Feiyong said, Look for it with your divine sense. The 4 of them immediately released their divine sense and rushed towards the peak. Want to leave? The next moment. Almost at the same time, the 4 of them roared and the power of the false god rolled out and rushed towards the void on the right side of the peak. There's really someone? Qin Feiyong was surprised. And this person has a space divine item. Willow Tree said. A space divine item. Looks like he's not a simple character. Qin Feiyong's eyes flashed. Whoosh. Suddenly, a burly man appeared in the void and hurriedly said, Lords, don't do anything. It's you? Willow Tree and the other 2 were stunned. This burly man was 2 meters tall and had a head of thick black hair, like a small giant. His upper body was exposed, only wearing a pair of large black pants. His body was muscular and there was a shocking scar on his face like a centipede, giving off a bandit aura. The burly man looked at Willow Tree and the other 2 and bowed. Greetings, Alliance Master, Palace Master, and Elder Lu. Who is he? Qin Feiyong asked. He is the leader of the 7 Fiends, the City Lord of 7 Fiend City, Xueqi. After Willow Tree finished speaking, he looked at Xueqi and said, I don't think I need to introduce you to this person beside me. As for Zhuge Mingyang, Willow Tree completely ignored him. Xueqi hurriedly turned to Qin Feiyong and bowed. This lowly one, Xueqi, greets young Master Qin. Qin Feiyong asked, What's the situation here? What a sin. Xueqi let out a sorrowful sigh. Looking at the 5 of them, he said, This was all done by the Guardians. What? Guardian? How did you provoke it? Qin Feiyong and the other 3 were quite surprised. Xueqi raged. It's all because of Wang Yuanshan. Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows and asked suspiciously, What does this have to do with Wang Yuanshan? 2 months ago, Wang Yuanshan brought Wang Yu to my 7 Fiend City. Wang Yuanshan and I are close friends, so I let him and Wang Yu stay in 7 Fiend City. Furthermore, we treated them with good wine and meat. Just half a month ago, the Guardian came to 7 Fiend City and asked us to hand Wang Yuanshan and Wang Yu over to it. I saw that the Guardian did not come with good intentions, so I wanted to delay the Guardian and let Wang Yuanshan and Wang Yu secretly leave 7 Fiend City. Tell me, am I not being loyal enough by doing this? Xueqi roared. Zhuge Mingyang nodded and said, You are using your own life as a wager. You are indeed loyal. But guess what Wang Yuanshan did?
I asked him to secretly leave Seven Fiends City, but not only did he not leave, he even ran to the Guardian and flattered it. He even betrayed me, saying that I went against the Guardian's wishes and asked him and Wang Yuer to secretly leave.
When the Guardian heard this, it was furious and directly destroyed the entire Seven Fiends City. Everyone in the city instantly ceased to exist. My 6 younger brothers self-destructed as well. I saw that the situation was bad, so I pretended to be dead to escape. Xueqi sighed.
Willow Tree said angrily, "This Wang Yuanshan really deserves to die.
It's my fault.
I shouldn't have let him off."
Qin Feiyang clenched his fists and said in frustration. Zhuge Mingyang said, "Wasn't he controlled by your slavery seal? Why don't you know what he is thinking?"
Qin Feiyang said helplessly, "I was in seclusion, how would I have the time to care about him?"
Tell me the truth. Don't blame me for saying this. Sometimes you are just too indecisive. Zhuge Mingyang shook his head.
Qin Feiyang looked at Xueqi and said, "In that case, Wang Yuer is now in the hands of the Guardian?"
Yes.
Wang Yuer is not bad.
When she saw Wang Yuanshan betraying me, her face was full of disappointment, and she even wanted to cut ties with Wang Yuanshan. Because of this, Wang Yuanshan flew into a rage. If the Guardian hadn't stopped him, he would have killed Wang Yuer on the spot.
That bastard is really inhumane.
It's fine if he betrayed me, but he actually attacked his family. How hateful.
Xueqi said in disgust, his eyes full of killing intent.
He really deserves to die. Li Yun and Ning Mingi also nodded. Willow Tree said, "Young master, can't your slavery seal kill people from a distance? Why don't you just erase his soul now? Killing him like this is too easy for him."
Qin Feiyang snorted coldly.
Yes.
This kind of person must suffer a fate worse than death.
Zhuge Mingyang nodded. Willow Tree said, "Then try and see if you can sense Wang Yuanshan's current location through the slavery seal." Qin Feiyang closed his eyes.
A moment later, he opened his eyes and shook his head.
Sigh.
Willow Tree sighed, turned to look at Xueqi, and asked, "Why didn't you come to us after such a big thing happened?"
"For the past half a month, I've been hiding in the spatial divine item, not daring to go out. Actually, I also thought of looking for you. But I was afraid.
Because if I went to look for you and was discovered by the Guardian, it would be even more impossible to let me go,"
Xueqi said. Qin Feiyang said, "So you plan to drag out an ignoble existence like this? What else can I do? It's the Guardian. Do I dare to go against it?" Xueqi said. "A person must have a backbone. We used to be afraid of it like you, but haven't we started to resist now?" Li Yun said. "Is resistance useful?"
Xueqi shook his head and laughed at himself.
Li Yun said, "Whether resistance is useful or not, at least we've tried." "That's right.
If we try, there's still hope.
If we don't, we're just waiting for death.
I don't want to be like my predecessors, trapped here for the rest of my life.
Even if I fail in the end and die in the hands of the Guardian, I won't regret it, because at least I tried." Ning Mingi said each word with a pause, his words sonorous and powerful. Xueqi looked at the two, then at Qin Feiyang, Willow Tree, and Zhuge Mingyang. He gritted his teeth, nodded, and said, "What's the difference between a person without backbone and trash? All right, I'll accompany you."
Qin Feiyang smiled, extended his hand and said, "Welcome."
"Thank you. In the future, I hope young Master Qin will take care of me." Xueqi grabbed Qin Feiyang's hand and held it tightly. "We'll take care of each other." Qin Feiyang smiled.
Willow Tree reminded, "Young master, don't forget our purpose in coming to Seven Fiends City this time."
"Purpose?" Xueqi looked suspiciously at Qin Feiyang.
Qin Feiyang said, "I want Brother Chui's grade 8 elixir fire.
I hope Brother Chui can part with it."
This. Xueqi's expression froze. Qin Feiyang smiled again. "Of course, now that we're all friends, if Brother Chui is not willing, I won't force you."
Xueqi looked at Qin Feiyang, suddenly smiled, and said, "Young Master Qin, what are you saying? Isn't it just a grade 8 elixir fire? Anyway, my alchemy talent isn't that great. I'll give it to you."
After saying that,
a fist-sized elixir fire flew out from Xueqi's body, in front of Qin Feiyang, and erased the blood contract. Actually, He wasn't such a generous person.
The reason why he gave it to Qin Feiyong so readily was because he liked Qin Feiyong's character. With Qin Feiyong's methods, he could take it by force, but he didn't do so. Secondly, now that they were on the same boat, he still needed to rely on Qin Feiyong to survive.
"Thank you,"
Qin Feiyong said gratefully, and brought the elixir fire into the ancient castle to refine the 5 elements universe elixir. Facing a new elixir fire, he needed to spend time to familiarize himself with it.
Chapter 1636. Very soon.
He had successfully refined a 5 elements universe pill. The 7 pill patterns flickered with dazzling light. But to be safe, he refined 2 more pills. Then, he swallowed a 5 elements universe pill and began to break through to the peak. This time, he was lucky and succeeded on his first try. Feeling the surging power in his body, Qin Feiyong was extremely excited. He had finally stepped into the peak. Now he could also begin to break through to the semi-god realm. Lu Zheng opened his eyes and looked at Qin Feiyong, saying, "Little cousin, refine a few 5 elements universe bags for me too."
"Okay."
Qin Feiyong nodded. Lu Zheng's cultivation had already stepped into the 8-star combat emperor realm after eating the barbecue 2 months ago. After another 2 months of hard work, it would not be long before he could step into the 9-star combat emperor realm. At that time, he would use the 5 elements universe pill to directly break through to the peak. After refining more than a dozen 5 elements universe bags, Qin Feiyong gave the pill fire to Dan Wangkai. This made Dan Wangkai extremely happy. With an 8th grade pill furnace and an 8th grade pill fire, he should be able to refine a pill with 6 pill patterns. He tried to refine a few battle chi pills. In the end, he really refined 6 pill patterns. "This will undoubtedly be of great help to me," Qin Feiyong muttered. Although Dan Wangkai had been immersed in the Tao of alchemy all these years and his cultivation had not improved much, in Qin Feiyong's eyes, Dan Wangkai had already become his right-hand man and could not be separated. Soul refining technique. Looking at Dan Wangkai's back, Qin Feiyong muttered and left the castle. When Willow Tree and the others saw Qin Feiyong, they were stunned. This aura was actually much stronger than before? Ning Mingi smiled bitterly and said, "Young lord, your cultivation progress is a little scary. In just 2 months, you have advanced from a 6-star combat emperor to the peak of a 9-star combat emperor."
"What? 2 months?" Hearing this, Xueqi was dumbfounded.
How was it possible to break through from a 6-star combat emperor to the pinnacle combat emperor realm in 2 months?
"What a joke,"
Li Yun said helplessly. "This is the truth.
We saw it with our own eyes. You have to believe it." Xueqi was dumbfounded. Was he still human? That was too scary.
Zhuge Mingyang pursed his lips and said indifferently, "Although you've reached the pinnacle, there's still a long way to go before you can catch up with me. The profound meaning of becoming a god isn't that easy to comprehend."
"Don't think too highly of yourself. I never thought of catching up to you."
"You will never be the target that I chase after,"
Qin Feiyong said.
Zhuge Mingyang joked, "But my strength is stronger than yours."
"There's still a long way to go. Let's wait and see."
Qin Feiyong smiled faintly and looked at Willow Tree saying, "Let's go." Willow Tree nodded and opened a teleportation door. The 6 of them entered one after another, and landed above the entrance of the Undead Mountain Range.
"Undead Mountain Range?"
Xueqi was stunned and asked suspiciously, "What are we doing here?"
"We don't know either."
Li Yun and the others smiled helplessly and looked at Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong smiled but didn't say anything. He went straight into the sky above the mountain range. 2 months had passed and the destroyed Undead Mountain Range had regained some vitality. The cedars were like large umbrellas that stood tall on the ground and exuded boundless vitality. As Qin Feiyong flew, he suddenly stopped and scanned the cedar trees below.
"Why did you stop?"
Willow Tree and the others looked at him suspiciously.
Zhuge Mingyang's face was filled with fear.
All of a sudden, Qin Feiyong took a step forward and landed in the middle of the cedar forest. He bowed to the cedars in all directions.
Li Yun frowned. What is he trying to do?
"I don't know."
Willow Tree shook its head.
Huff.
After bowing, Qin Feiyong took a deep breath.
He looked at the cedar trees around him and said, "For countless years, you all have carried on the will of the deceased. Regardless of wind and rain,
You have always protected this pure land. This junior admires you. What are you up to now? Zhuge Mingyang frowned.
Actually, I shouldn't have disturbed you or implicated you,
Because this is your root and your home.
However, the sages who nurtured you with their blood and bodies also have roots and homes. Although I have never seen them or know them, I can imagine that when they were alive, they must have wanted to return to the homeland that nurtured them. Therefore, I would like to implore everyone to fight side by side with me. We will fight against the guardians to the end and break this cage so that the souls of the deceased can be released. You carry on the will of the deceased. I believe that you can also feel that if we don't break the Black Tortoise world, their souls will never rest in peace.
Qin Feiyong cried out mournfully. I see. Willow Tree and the others suddenly understood. They also felt sad in their hearts. Which one of the people trapped in the Black Tortoise world didn't want to leave? Which one of them didn't want to go home? However, the rules of the Black Tortoise world were like an insurmountable mountain. No matter how capable they were, they could only look at it and stop. Sages, I believe that your souls haven't dissipated and can hear us. I beg you to fight side by side with us. Ning Mingi couldn't help but cry out sorrowfully. Yes, we need you. Li Yun roared. Her voice was like a bell that resounded in all directions. Whoosh! One of the cedars suddenly swayed. However, the other cedars didn't move. Qin Feiyong's spirit rose as he said loudly, I can't promise you anything here, and I can't guarantee that I can take you out of the Black Tortoise world and leave the divine ruins. However, I will try my best, even if it costs me my life. Whoosh! As soon as he said this, the other cedars also swayed. Come! Let us work hard together. Let the guardians, let the creators see that we are not ants that they can casually trample on. We are insignificant people, and we also have dignity. Heaven's might can be defied, but we can't lose our courage. We must show them our determination. We will not stop until we break this cage. Qin Feiyong roared. A shocking battle intent and an unyielding will rushed out of his body like a volcano erupting. Heaven's might can be defied, but we can't lose our courage. The eyes of Willow Tree and the others trembled. The blood in their bodies was also boiling. A powerful battle intent soared into the sky. That's right. Heaven's might can be defied, but a person's courage must not be lost. Whoosh! Rumble! At the same time, the cedars seemed to be infected by Qin Feiyong as they rose from the ground and flew toward Qin Feiyong. At the same time, a golden beast figure stood proudly at the top of the clouds. It was very small, only about a foot tall. Its entire body was shrouded in a golden light, and its original body couldn't be seen clearly. No aura could be sensed from its body. However, behind the golden beast figure, the guardian python was respectful and didn't have the slightest domineering expression. However, looking at Qin Feiyong below, the killing intent in its eyes was undisguised. Sir, did you see that? This person's actions are no longer ordinary arrogance. He is simply looking down on you and blaspheming the divine might of you and the Creator. This kind of ant shouldn't be allowed to continue living. The giant python said. He is indeed a little arrogant, but don't you think it's interesting? The golden beast figure said playfully. Interesting? The giant python was stunned. Yes. How many years has it been? Finally, there is a human who dares to challenge this emperor and the little emperor. What an interesting thing this is. The golden beast figure nodded. The giant python shook its head and said, This subordinate doesn't find it interesting. This is because you haven't reached the level of this emperor. Do you know what it feels like to be invincible? Boring, empty, lonely, feeling that this life has lost its meaning. The golden beast figure sighed. The giant python secretly rolled its eyes and said anxiously, Sir, the Xueqi and the castle in this child's hands are heaven-defying artifacts. If we don't get rid of him as soon as possible, I'm afraid he will really pose a threat to us. No matter how heaven-defying the artifact is, this emperor won't put it in his eyes. Let him slowly torment himself. This emperor wants to see how big of a wave he can create. After the golden beast figure finished speaking, it instantly disappeared without a trace. Chapter 1637. Qin Feiyong and the others had no idea about the appearance of the guardian and the golden beast shadow. Cedar trees from all directions flew towards Qin Feiyang in an endless stream. They were even shrinking. In the end, the cedar trees that were hundreds of feet tall all became as long as a finger. They were like small saplings, emitting a hazy divine light. An invisible will poured into Qin Feiyang's mind. These wills contained too many emotions. There was unwillingness. There was anger. There was determination. Qin Feiyang bowed and said, "Thank you for your trust in me.
I, Qin Feiyang, will do what I say."
Buzz! The cedar trees floating in the void all drilled into Qin Feiyang's body like a swarm of bees.
Ning Mingi was enraged and hurriedly shouted, "Young master, be careful."
"What's wrong?"
Qin Feiyang was surprised. They were born from the bodies of the predecessors.
"You can't let them stay in your body,"
Ning Mingi said.
"Yes. What if they take the opportunity to absorb your bloodline power? Don't you have an ancient castle?
Let them go into your ancient castle."
Willow Tree also said. Swish!
Upon hearing their words, the cedar trees immediately flew to the front of the two of them and started shaking non-stop, as if they were protesting.
Qin Feiyang glanced at the cedar trees, his eyes flickering. A moment later, he waved his hand and smiled, looked at Willow Tree and said, "They trust me, and I naturally trust them. I believe that they will definitely not hurt me. Come on."
Qin Feiyang opened his hands, without the slightest doubt, with a face full of sincerity.
Whoosh! At that moment, with the sound of breaking air, all the cedar trees turned into streams of light and drilled into Qin Feiyang's body. Boom! All of a sudden, a majestic life force rushed out from Qin Feiyang's body. At this moment, his entire body seemed to have turned into a spring of life.
The plants around him were nourished by this life force and began to grow at a speed visible to the naked eye.
A short while later, the small saplings grew into towering trees that were more than 100 feet tall. "What's going on?"
Willow Tree and the others were bewildered.
"I understand. Xueqi has provided the young master with the vitality. In other words, they are telling us that not only will they not harm young master, they will even protect young master in times of crisis,"
Ning Mingi said.
"I see." Willow Tree was suddenly enlightened.
He smiled bitterly and said, "Why do I feel like I'm measuring the heart of a gentleman with my own mean measure?"
Ning Mingi also smiled bitterly. "Brother Qin, you've earned a lot.
With the help of these cedars, he will have endless life force.
In addition, these cedars have the ability of absolute defense. In the future, even false gods like us won't be able to get close to him." Li Yun smiled enviously. Willow Tree and Ning Mingi also smiled. Only Zhuge Mingyang's face was filled with displeasure. Seeing Qin Feiyang getting stronger day by day, he felt very unbalanced in his heart. At the same time,
Qin Feiyang closed his eyes and looked at the situation in his body.
The cedars did not enter his sea of qi, but were all rooted in his meridians and flesh.
At first glance, they looked like tiny light spots that were densely packed together, causing every inch of his flesh and every cell to glow. The huge vitality pervaded his limbs and bones, making him feel an indescribable carefree. "Let's get along in the future," Qin Feiyang said with a smile in his mind. The dots of light flickered, as if responding to Qin Feiyang. Then, tens of thousands of cedars fell silent. The vitality that permeated from Qin Feiyang's body also quickly dissipated. "You're really lucky." Zhuge Mingyang pursed his lips and said sourly. "Lucky?" Qin Feiyang sneered. What did this have to do with luck? It was his sincerity that touched these cedars. "Whatever you say. I don't want to argue with you and waste my breath. Let's go," Qin Feiyang said lightly, then took out the castle and handed it to Willow Tree. "You stay outside with the others and enter the castle when there's a crisis." Willow Tree was stunned and asked, "What about you?" Qin Feiyang said with a smile, "Of course I'll go into seclusion to comprehend the mysteries of becoming a god." "Okay." Willow Tree nodded. After Qin Feiyang entered the castle, Willow Tree and the others immediately set off and flew toward the desert. Inside the castle, Qin Feiyang looked at Ling Yunfei and said with a smile, "Send me to your castle." Ling Yunfei said, "You have to be mentally prepared in advance. The mysteries of becoming a god are not that easy to comprehend."
"I know." Qin Feiyang nodded, then looked at the Golden Wolf King and the Silver Wolf King, and said, "You guys come with me too." "Really?" The two beasts looked at Qin Feiyang. Actually,
they had also been comprehending the mysteries of becoming a god in the castle, but no one had given them any pointers and they didn't know where to start.
They had also asked Ling Yunfei and Luo Qingzhu.
But because the Golden Wolf King had schemed against them many times in the past, the two of them ignored them. This made them very desperate. So at this moment, when they heard Qin Feiyang's words, they were overjoyed. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "As long as you guys are honest, I will not treat you unfairly."
"Don't worry.
We will definitely be honest in the future."
The two beasts hurriedly promised.
Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled, then looked at Luo Qingzhu and the Miss of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, and asked suspiciously, "What about you guys?
Hasn't your cultivation reached the peak realm? Why are you still here?"
The Miss of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion said, "Aren't we waiting for you?"
"Come on." Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes.
Luo Qingzhu said, "Actually, we can't completely calm down, so we've been waiting here." Qin Feiyang asked curiously, "Then why are you unable to calm down?" Luo Qingzhu said, "Sister Rushuang is worried about her mother's comfort. As for me..." At this point, Luo Qingzhu lowered her head, her cheeks slightly red. "Sister Qingzhu, don't be embarrassed," the Miss of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion teased. Luo Qingzhu said angrily, "Sister." The Miss of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion shook her head and smiled. She looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "Me waiting for you is fake, but Sister Qingzhu waiting for you is real."
Qin Feiyang was stunned. This was too sudden. He didn't know what to do for a moment.
"That. Ling Yunfei, what are you waiting for?
Hurry up and bring us in."
After stammering for a while, Qin Feiyang turned to Ling Yunfei and urged.
"How unromantic."
Ling Yunfei pursed his lips and waved his hand. He brought Qin Feiyang, Luo Qingzhu, the Miss of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, and the Golden Wolf King to descend above a mountain. The mountains and rivers were majestic and magnificent. The mountain streams were lush with vegetation.
Rivers flowed endlessly.
By a certain river, Li Jian sat alone on the shore, holding a fishing rod made of willow tree branches in his hand, fishing quietly.
Swoosh!
Qin Feiyang took a step forward and landed beside Li Jian. He smiled and said, "How's your harvest?" Li Jian hurriedly stood up and said respectfully, "Greetings, young master." "There's no need to be so polite here." Qin Feiyang waved his hand and smiled. Looking at the fishing rod in Li Jian's hand, he was slightly stunned. He realized that the fishing rod in Li Jian's hand was not tied with a line. Qin Feiyang said in shock, "How are you going to fish like this?"
"What I'm fishing is not fish."
Li Jian shook his head. "Then what is it?"
Qin Feiyang was suspicious. "It's the state of mind.
Fishing is something that requires a lot of patience. Many people will feel irritated when they don't see a fish take the bait for a long time.
Especially now like me.
Without a fishing line, knowing that I can't catch a fish, I still have to sit here. The irritation in my heart will be even stronger. Therefore, I want to use this method to hone my patience and stabilize my temperament. When I'm completely used to it and won't feel the slightest bit of irritation, my heart will truly calm down."
Li Jian smiled. "So that's the case."
Qin Feiyang nodded and turned to look at Ling Yunfei and the rest, saying with a smile, "His method is really good." Ling Yunfei and the rest nodded one after another. Qin Feiyang asked, "What about the Scorpion King and the other two beasts?"
"I don't know."
Li Jian shook his head.
"Aren't you guys together? How can you not know?"
Qin Feiyang was doubtful.
"Don't mention it."
"I asked them to fish with me, but these 4 guys left after staying for less than an hour, saying that it was too boring." Li Jian looked helpless. If they can't even calm down, how can they comprehend the profound meaning of becoming a god? "Ling Yunfei, find them immediately,"
Qin Feiyang said angrily.
Ling Yunfei nodded and closed his eyes. As the owner of this ancient castle, he did not need to look for them. He could know everything with his telepathy.
"Bastard!"
Suddenly,
Ling Yunfei roared.
Qin Feiyang and the rest were shocked. Ling Yunfei said angrily, "These 4 bastards, they actually..." He was out of breath and could not say anything for a long time. Even the top of his head was smoking.
"What happened? Why is this guy so angry?"
Qin Feiyang and the rest were suspicious.
Ling Yunfei said, let's not talk about it. I'll take you there directly. Li Jian immediately put down the fishing rod in his hand. Qin Feiyang said with a smile, don't go, lest it spoils your state of mind. Li Jian nodded. Ling Yunfei waved his hand and an invisible force shrouded them. At that moment, Qin Feiyang and the rest felt their bodies lighten, and the next moment, they arrived above a canyon. The canyon was very large and surrounded by mountains. There was a lake in the middle. But it was not filled with water, but a kind of crystal-clear liquid. And on the surrounding cliffs, there were beehives of different sizes hanging. The big beehives were hundreds of feet high, like mountains. The small ones could also be dozens of feet high. Blood-red bees were flying around the beehives. That's right. These were the blood-devouring bees that Qin Feiyang subdued in the miracle. And the liquid in the lake was also the beehive that everyone swept. However, at this moment, there were actually 4 big guys soaking in the beehive. It felt like taking a bath. These 4 guys were the Scorpion King's 4 beasts. Boss Qin, you're finally here. Quickly take care of them. These beehive were painstakingly refined before. We can't let it be wasted like this. Yeah. This is simply a waste of God's gift. Chapter 1638. Boss Qin. The Scorpion King and the other 2 beasts jumped out like frightened rabbits when they heard the sound of the blood-devouring bees. When they looked up and saw Qin Feiyang, they felt despair as if they saw Qin Feiyang's angry eyes. Get over here. Qin Feiyang said angrily. The 4 beasts shuddered and quickly ran to Qin Feiyang, lowering their heads like 4 children who had done something wrong. Good for you. I asked you to come here to comprehend the mysteries of becoming a god, but you came here to take a bath. You really know how to enjoy yourself. Qin Feiyang said. No. We were wrong, we won't do it again. The 4 beasts quickly took the initiative to admit their mistake. The blood-devouring bee's beehive is a rare treasure. You think you can just say you were wrong after taking a bath in it? How will Boss Qin and the others drink it in the future? The Golden Wolf King and Silver Wolf King sneered, their eyes full of gloating. Ever since they followed Qin Feiyang, the 4 beasts had not been nice to them, and they had long been resentful in their hearts. Now that there was such a good opportunity, how could they miss it? It would be a waste of this opportunity if they didn't hit them when they were down. Shut up. The 4 beasts raised their eyebrows and glared at the Golden Wolf King and Silver Wolf King. Qin Feiyang shouted, you should be the one to shut up. Tell me, how are you going to deal with this? The 4 beasts immediately lowered their heads and said, we accept the punishment. Good. That's what you said. Lie down. Qin Feiyang said. The 4 beasts quickly lay down in the void. Qin Feiyang looked at the blood-devouring bees around and said, all of you, come here and beat them up. Don't show mercy. What? The 4 beasts trembled. There were so many blood-devouring bees. Beating them up, wasn't this asking for their lives? Boss Qin, we were really wrong. Can you spare us? We won't dare to do it again. The 4 beasts raised their heads and looked at Qin Feiyang with pitiful expressions. Qin Feiyang remained unmoved and said, Golden Wolf King, Silver Wolf King, you 2 stay here and supervise them. If they dare to resist, immediately send me a message, and I'll erase their souls. Understood. The Golden Wolf King and the Golden Wolf King immediately perked up. The Golden Wolf King looked at the blood-devouring bees and roared, beat them up! Beat them up! Don't give us any face! Cough cough. Silver Wolf King coughed dryly and said in a low voice, Big brother, I said the wrong thing. The Golden Wolf King was stunned for a moment. Then he quickly changed his words. I mean beat him up. Don't give Boss Qin any face. The Crocodile Emperor was furious. You 2 bastards. Are you trying to hit me when I'm down? Is there? Now that Boss Qin ordered us to beat you up, what can we do? Yeah, as subordinates, we can only follow orders. So, you have to understand. Don't worry, there aren't that many blood-devouring bees. It'll be over soon. The Golden Wolf King and the Golden Wolf King snickered. The Crocodile Emperor and the other beasts looked at the swarm of blood-devouring bees that looked like a sea of blood and wanted to curse. That's not many? Ah! But before they could curse,
More than 10 blood-devouring bees swarmed forward, waving their claws and hitting the heads of the 4 beasts.
Be gentle. It hurts. The ant emperor roared. As long as you know the pain. Enjoy it. Qin Feiyong let out a cold snort. He turned his head to look at Ling Yunfei and asked, "Where are the divine infant tree, the tree of fortune, and the medicinal herbs we obtained from the divine ruins?"
Ling Yunfei glared at the crocodile emperor and the other beasts, then turned and pointed at a plain not far away.
There. The group flew over. The plain was next to the canyon, covering an area of about 3 miles. The tree of creation, and countless herbs were planted in the center of the plain, shining with a hazy glow. A river ran through the entire plain. The river was clear, and both sides were green. Occasionally, a few blooming flowers could be seen. Qin Feiyong looked around and looked at Ling Yunfei and the others. He smiled and said, "I think this place is not bad. Let's stay here from now on." "Sure." Ling Yunfei nodded. Luo Qingzhu and the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix House had no objections. "What do you think about the mysteries of becoming a god?" Luo Qingzhu asked. "My mother once told me that the mysteries of becoming a god are only 12 words. As long as you understand these 12 words, success will follow naturally." The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix House said. Qin Feiyong said, "Don't forget your original intention, don't forget your heart, and only then can you achieve results. Is that right?" "Yes." The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix House nodded. Ling Yunfei said, "Uncle Yuan told us the same." "Then how do you understand these 12 words?" Qin Feiyong asked. "My understanding is that not forgetting one's original intention is to not forget the naivety and kindness before cultivation. In other words, childlike innocence. Not forgetting one's heart is to not forget one's duty as a human." Ling Yunfei said. "I have the same idea as Ling Yunfei." Luo Qingzhu said. "My opinion is a little different. I think that not forgetting one's original intention and not forgetting one's heart should be to not forget why we cultivate. That's because everyone has a dream or a wish before they step onto the path of cultivation." The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix House said. "It doesn't sound wrong." Ling Yunfei nodded. "No, I don't agree." Luo Qingzhu shook her head. "Why?" The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix House looked at her suspiciously. "I'm sure. Everyone has a dream before they cultivate. But there are differences in dreams. Some want to protect their loved ones. Some do it for survival. Some do it for power. Some do it for money. There are also some who do it for revenge. Wait. I'm divided into 2 categories, good and evil. And according to my understanding, the original intention and heart should represent kindness. If according to what you said, not forgetting one's original intention and not forgetting one's heart is to not forget why we cultivate, then wouldn't that be encouraging the evil thoughts of those evil people?" Luo Qingzhu said. "What you said makes sense." Ling Yunfei nodded. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix House did not refute. She turned to look at Qin Feiyong and said, "What's your understanding?" "Actually, I've been thinking about this question for a long time. I've also asked many people. For example, Uncle Yuan, Elder Qin, Second Grandpa. I remember that Second Grandpa once said something. Let go of everything and return to one's original intention and heart. According to my understanding, first of all we have to calm ourselves down and slowly forget everything that happened in the past, as well as all the obsessions in our hearts. For example, greed, resentment, desire, ambition, and so on. It seems that someone once said with certainty that although my talent is good, it's impossible for me to become a god in this lifetime. The reason is that my obsession is too deep. I also admit this point. Otherwise, the inner demons wouldn't have been born." Qin Feiyong shook his head and smiled bitterly. "Who said that?" Ling Yunfei frowned. "I forgot. It seems to be Mu Tianyang, the imperial preceptor, and Emperor Hong. But that's not important. The important thing is, how do we let go of these obsessions? After all, in everyone's heart, there is something that they can't give up. Some people are family, some people are hatred. There are too many, and it's hard to explain." Qin Feiyong said. The 3 of them fell silent. "Don't forget your original intention, don't forget your original intention." Qin Feiyong shook his head and smiled.
What you said actually makes sense, but I feel that it's not deep enough. The Miss of the Dragon Phoenix House said, Then what do you think is deeper?
What does a newborn baby look like? Qin Feiyong asked back. A newborn baby?
The Miss of the Dragon Phoenix House was stunned and said, A newborn baby doesn't know anything, and doesn't even have self-awareness.
Isn't it equivalent to a piece of blank paper? That's right.
A person's life is originally a piece of pure white paper. The good and evil were filled in as they grew up, as they schemed against each other, as they killed, struggled, and sought survival.
They were filled in one stroke at a time.
Although this can make our lives colorful, under the temptation of desire, it will also make us lose our original intention and forget the innate purity that should belong to us. For example, the four of us. Our hearts are now stained with too much dust. And this dust is already deeply rooted and difficult to remove. And this so-called dust is the 7 emotions and 6 desires. I think that not forgetting our original intention, should be for us to cut off the 7 emotions and 6 desires and return to this piece of blank paper.
Qin Feiyong said.
Cut off the 7 emotions and 6 desires. Ling Yunfei muttered, shook his head, and said with a bitter smile. Who doesn't have the 7 emotions and 6 desires in this world?
Cut off?
It's easier said than done.
That's right.
It's easier said than done.
Qin Feiyong sighed. He didn't know about the others.
But he was very clear about himself. The obsession in his heart was too deep. He really didn't have the confidence or courage. There were some things that he couldn't let go of. The Miss of the Dragon Phoenix House had been in deep thought with her head lowered. Suddenly, she looked up at everyone and said, After listening to your words, I seem to have been enlightened. You guys chat first. I'll go into seclusion. With that, without waiting for Qin Feiyong and the others to respond, she quickly walked to the Tree of Creation, sat down cross-legged and closed her eyes.
So fast.
Ling Yunfei was stunned.
I seem to have caught a hint of inspiration too.
You guys chat. Luo Qingzhu said and also walked to the side of the Miss of the Dragon Phoenix House. She sat cross-legged on the ground and closed her eyes to enter a meditative state.
What's the situation with these two women?
Could it be that their comprehension is better than the two of us?
Ling Yunfei looked at Qin Feiyong and said.
Maybe.
Qin Feiyong smiled.
Ling Yunfei pursed his lips and said, I won't admit defeat.
I'll also go and think about it.
You can slowly walk around by yourself.
You're really impatient. Qin Feiyong shook his head.
However, not forgetting his original intention, not forgetting his heart, was it really that simple? Although he felt that what he said before was very reasonable, he always felt that there should be something that he hadn't thought of. But what was it? He couldn't think of anything at all and had no idea where to start. He felt that this was already his limit.
I don't want to think about it anymore. You haven't even calmed down. Why are you still thinking about this? Aren't you just daydreaming?
A moment later,
Qin Feiyong shook his head and mocked himself.
He raised his head and looked at Ling Yunfei and the other two, then strolled around.
Chapter 1639. Time passed day by day.
Qin Feiyong walked in the mountains all day, with green mountains and clear waters as neighbors, with the sun, moon, and stars as companions, but his heart could not calm down.
On this day,
he walked to Li Jian's side, looked at the fishing rod in Li Jian's hand, and asked, Is your heart calmed down?
There are too many things in the world. How can I calm down?
Li Jian shook his head and sighed.
Yes.
How can I calm down? Qin Feiyong nodded, went to find a willow branch, sat next to Li Jian, and quietly fished. This was a very dry thing. After sitting for less than an hour, he could not sit still anymore. Without a line or a fish hook, how could he fish? This was a huge test. No one, in the face of such a situation, could persist. But Qin Feiyong persevered. He tried to calm himself down and let himself sit here, but perhaps because it was too deliberate, he became more and more anxious. Several days passed. He put down the willow branch and left silently, found a secluded cliff, sat cross-legged on the edge of the cliff, did not think about anything, and let himself enter an ethereal state. After 3 or 4 days, he finally got rid of all distracting thoughts. However, although he got rid of all distracting thoughts, he still could not calm his heart. He could not figure out why.
He remembered that when he was refining the recovery pill, he could quickly reach a state of mind like still water. Was it really because it was too deliberate? After pondering for a while, he closed his eyes again. But this time, he did not deliberately calm himself down. He was comprehending the 3,000 incarnations. He wanted to use this method to divert his attention. 3,000 incarnations was a very powerful divine art. It could condense 3,000 incarnations. Each incarnation had the same strength as the original body. Since he obtained these 3,000 incarnations, he had not properly comprehended them. First, there was no time.
Second, the divine art was too profound. With his current comprehension, it was difficult to thoroughly comprehend, so he had been putting it aside.
The only thing he did not lack was time. Days passed.
Finally he opened his eyes, revealing a look of realization, and said, "I see." 3,000 incarnations was different from other divine arts, divided into a total of 4 realms. Initial, small, great, and perfection. Condensing one incarnation was initial. Once he reached the small success stage, he would be able to form 1,000 clones. At the great success stage, he would be able to form 2,000 incarnations. Once it reached perfection, it would be able to condense a total of 3,000 incarnations. This divine incantation was heaven-defying. Especially towards the end, the stronger one's cultivation was, the more powerful the incarnation's cultivation would be. For example, Qin Feiyang. Once he broke through to the divine battle realm and unleashed 3,000 clones, together with his actual self, there would be 3,001 Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang was a little puzzled. Where did this Zhuge Mingyang obtain such a heaven-defying technique? State Preceptor? Emperor Hong? It was impossible. It wasn't that he looked down on the two of them, but that this kind of divine art was beyond their abilities. Furthermore, how could they be willing to give such a terrifying deity technique to Zhuge Mingyang when they themselves were in a hurry to cultivate it? Undying Demon Attack. 3,000 clones. There were also spatial divine objects that could fight against rule force. This Zhuge Mingyang was becoming more and more unfathomable. In the past, in his eyes, Mu Tianyang was the biggest threat. But now, Mu Tianyang was no longer a big deal. Zhuge Mingyang was the most worthy opponent. In fact, he was also very depressed in his heart. Why was his life so bumpy? First, it was Mu Tianyang, which gave him a headache. Now, Mu Tianyang hadn't been dealt with yet, and there was another Zhuge Mingyang. He was wondering if the heavens were joking with him? After he dealt with Zhuge Mingyang, would there be another existence that was even more terrifying than Mu Tianyang and Zhuge Mingyang? Just thinking about it gave him a headache. Qin Feiyang shook his head and continued to comprehend the 3,000 clones. Time flew. After an unknown number of days, the Miss of the Dragon Phoenix House, who was sitting cross-legged under the Tree of Good Fortune, slowly opened her eyes. That's not right. Although Qin Feiyang explained it very thoroughly, the profound meaning of becoming a god is far from that simple. But what exactly is it? She muttered to herself, her eyes full of confusion. Sigh. Luo Qingzhu sighed softly and also opened her eyes. Looking at the Miss of the Dragon Phoenix House, she said, I can feel that Feiyang is already very close, but there is still something missing. Yes. The Miss of the Dragon Phoenix House nodded. Then what exactly is missing? Ling Yunfei asked, also opening his eyes and looking at the two of them. I don't know. The two of them shook their heads. Ling Yunfei rubbed his head and said helplessly, What a headache. Uncle Yuan should have told us directly. The Miss of the Dragon Phoenix House said, The profound meaning of becoming a god requires us to comprehend it ourselves. At most, others can only give us directions. Ling Yunfei took a deep breath, looked around and asked doubtfully, Where's Boss Qin? I didn't see him when I woke up. Luo Qingzhu shook her head. Ling Yunfei closed his eyes and carefully sensed for a while. He said speechlessly, So he went to hide by himself. Let's go take a look. The two girls nodded and stood up one after another. Ling Yunfei waved his hand, and the three of them immediately appeared at the edge of the cliff. They saw that Qin Feiyang's eyes were slightly closed, his expression serene, as if he had fallen into a deep sleep. Ling Yunfei was about to go up and call Qin Feiyang. Don't go! The Miss of the Dragon Phoenix House suddenly reached out her hand to stop Ling Yunfei, and sent a sound transmission, With his vigilance, he should have noticed us the moment we arrived, but now he looks like he doesn't know anything. Ling Yunfei was startled, and thought to himself, "You mean, he has already comprehended the profound meaning of becoming a god?"
"I'm not sure. But it's possible.
Don't disturb him.
Let's take a look at the situation first."
The miss of the Dragon Phoenix house sent a sound transmission. Ling Yunfei cursed in his heart. To comprehend it so thoroughly, this bastard really makes people envious.
Then,
the three of them also sat not far behind Qin Feiyang. While watching Qin Feiyang's situation, they silently cultivated. A few days later in the morning,
a sudden change occurred.
Beside Qin Feiyang, another Qin Feiyang suddenly appeared out of thin air.
Ling Yunfei and the other two were bewildered.
This Qin Feiyang who suddenly appeared, regardless of height, face, fat or thin expression, was exactly the same as Qin Feiyang. It was as if they were carved from the same mold. Luo Qingzhu said, "Is it his inner demons?"
No.
His inner demons are blood hair and blood pupils, and his entire body is filled with a fiendish aura. And now, this Qin Feiyang who has appeared, has black hair and black pupils, and his aura is exactly the same as Qin Feiyang's. So it's definitely not the inner demons.
Ling Yunfei thought.
Just as the two of them were secretly conversing, another Qin Feiyang appeared beside Qin Feiyang.
3 Qin Feiyang?
The three of them were dumbfounded. Before they could regain their senses, a third Qin Feiyang appeared.
What the hell is going on?
Ling Yunfei was bewildered. Before he could finish his words, beside Qin Feiyang, a fourth Qin Feiyang appeared.
Following closely,
one by one, Qin Feiyang appeared. In the end, there were a total of 99 Qin Feiyang standing in front of the three of them. Including Qin Feiyang's original body, there were a total of 100. Ling Yunfei said in a daze, "Damn, is this guy playing a clone game with us?"
A clone game?
Luo Qingzhu frowned, as if she had thought of something.
Suddenly,
the miss of the Dragon Phoenix house thought, "It's the 3,000 incarnations."
That's right.
It's the 3,000 incarnations. Luo Qingzhu quivered and also transmitted her voice. So it's the 3,000 incarnations.
Ling Yunfei suddenly realized.
Many people knew that Qin Feiyang had snatched the 3,000 incarnations from Zhuge Mingyang, including them. But because Qin Feiyang had never used it before, they had all forgotten about it.
Interesting.
Ling Yunfei laughed sinisterly. He suddenly jumped up and slapped an incarnation with his palm.
"Kid, are you looking for a beating?"
The 99 incarnations turned around in unison, looked at Ling Yunfei, and said in unison,
"Moreover."
The corners of his mouth curled up as he pursed his lips into a mocking smile.
"Fuck."
Even the tone and expression are the same. Ling Yunfei's face twitched and said angrily, "That's right, this young master is looking for a beating, come and beat me up."
"You go."
No, you go."
"Why don't you go?"
"I'm not going, you go." The group of incarnations started to argue, treating Ling Yunfei as heir. Ling Yunfei's face darkened and said angrily, "Stop arguing, all of you attack together."
"If we attack together, you're finished."
"That's right.
Any one of us can beat you up like a dog. Are you sure you want us to attack together?"
The 99 incarnations looked at Ling Yunfei seriously, and asked in unison. Ling Yunfei's veins popped out. He was so angry that he stomped his feet and roared, "Can you guys not talk together?
Don't stand together? I have trypophobia."
"Forget it. I'm at a disadvantage."
"I'll go."
One of the incarnations shook his head, took a step forward, and hooked his finger at Ling Yunfei, saying, "Brat Ling, bring it on."
"Seal of Nirvana."
Ling Yunfei roared, and directly evolved the divine art.
"Scum."
The incarnation disdainfully waved his hand in the air, and a golden light burst out, pouncing towards the Seal of Nirvana.
Boom.
The Seal of Nirvana spun in the air and charged towards Ling Yunfei.
"This is the return formula?"
Ling Yunfei was stunned.
"Yes."
The incarnation nodded.
"Fuck, this is too unreasonable.
An avatar can actually use the Huan character formula?" Ling Yunfei cursed and quickly dodged the attack of the Seal of Nirvana.
"It's not just the return formula.
We know all the divine arts and methods of this sovereign." The 99 incarnations spoke again at the same time.
Ling Yunfei was stunned. You don't believe me? The 99 incarnations smiled proudly, and in an instant, all of them activated the battle and kill formula. Then they evolved various divine arts. The 4 moves of the Ruins of End. The 3 moves of the Eclipse Moon. The Fire Phoenix formula, and so on. Ling Yunfei was dumbfounded. When he came back to his senses, he hurriedly waved his hand and said, "Stop showing off, I believe you, I believe you." The 99 incarnations waved their hands, and all the divine arts disappeared in an instant. They also turned off the battle and kill formula. It was also at this moment. Another incarnation appeared beside Qin Feiyang out of thin air. This time, there were a total of 100 incarnations. 100 incarnations, equivalent to 100 Qin Feiyang. This is too exaggerated. This is simply shameless. Chapter 1640. Qin Feiyang finally opened his eyes, looked at Ling Yunfei and said, "We are not enemies, what are you afraid of?" "I feel sorry for your future enemies." Ling Yunfei rolled his eyes, glanced at the 100 incarnations, and waved his hand. "My trypophobia is about to act up, quickly get them to scram." Qin Feiyang smiled helplessly, waved his hand, and all the incarnations disappeared. Luo Qingzhu asked curiously, 3,000 incarnations, shouldn't there be 3,000 incarnations? Why are there only 100 now? This divine art also has levels. 100 incarnations is already my limit. Qin Feiyang said. Luo Qingzhu nodded in realization. Miss Longfeng said, "In other words, during this period of time, you have not comprehended the profound meaning of becoming a god?" "No. I can't calm down. I originally wanted to use the method of comprehending the divine art to distract myself, but I didn't expect to be immersed in it. I completely forgot to comprehend the profound meaning of becoming a god." Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled bitterly. After the 3 of them heard this, they were speechless. "Wait. Forgot." But suddenly, Qin Feiyang was stunned, and then lowered his head, his face full of surprise. When he said that he had completely forgotten to comprehend the profound meaning of becoming a god, a light suddenly flashed across his mind. However, he didn't catch it. However, he had a feeling that this sudden light had a lot to do with the profound meaning of becoming a god. "What's wrong with you?" Luo Qingzhu looked at him suspiciously. "Don't talk." Qin Feiyang waved his hand, lowered his head, and kept repeating that sentence, but that light never appeared again. What was it? He couldn't help but start to feel irritated. "Ha!" Suddenly, a loud laugh sounded from afar. In the laughter, there was incomparable excitement and joy. But then, the laughter became somewhat crazy again, as if it was deranged. Is this Li Jian's laughter? What is he doing? Could it be that he sat by the river for too long and became stupid? Ling Yunfei was bewildered. Qin Feiyang also temporarily suppressed the irritation in his heart. He raised his head and looked in Li Jian's direction, his brows tightly knitted. Hearing this laughter, it didn't sound like a fool. It sounded more like he had gone berserk. "Don't just stand there and watch. Let's go and see what's going on. If something really happens, we can help him in time," the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house said. "Quick!" Qin Feiyang looked at Ling Yunfei and urged. Ling Yunfei waved his hand, and the 4 of them immediately appeared behind Li Jian. They saw Li Jian standing by the river, laughing madly towards the sky. He couldn't have really gone mad, could he? Ling Yunfei whispered. "Li Jian, what are you doing? Don't scare us," Luo Qingzhu said anxiously. Li Jian stopped laughing and turned to look at the 3 of them. Without saying a word, he sat by the river again, holding onto the willow branch and fishing silently. This, Ling Yunfei, Luo Qingzhu, and Miss Longfeng looked at each other. Qin Feiyang looked at Li Jian's back and muttered in his heart, "Could it be that you have already comprehended a deeper level of profoundness? Li Jian, can't you see that we are all concerned about you? Say something." Ling Yunfei said angrily. "Don't disturb him," Qin Feiyang said. "What's wrong?" Ling Yunfei was suspicious. Qin Feiyang said meaningfully, "Whether we can become gods or not, we might have to rely on him." "Rely on him?" Ling Yunfei was stunned and said in surprise, "What do you mean?"
I think he has already comprehended a deeper level of profoundness.
Qin Feiyang nodded. Luo Qingzhu and Miss Longfeng's eyes lit up. Ling Yunfei was stunned when he heard this and said, "This guy's comprehension is not bad. Why don't we fish with him here? Everyone has their own opinions and methods. We don't have to learn from him, but we can try." Qin Feiyang said. "Then I'll give it a try."
Ling Yunfei also found a willow branch and sat not far away from Li Jian, fishing quietly.
"Sister Rushuang, what about us?" Luo Qingzhu looked at Miss Longfeng.
Miss Longfeng thought for a moment and said with a smile, "Since we don't have any clues now, we might as well give it a try."
"Okay." Luo Qingzhu nodded. The two of them also did the same.
They found a willow branch and sat on the riverbank, looking at the clear river water, their eyes calm.
Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled.
He turned around and soared into the sky, flying towards the canyon.
"Damn it, it's already been half a month. How long are you going to beat him up? I'm telling you, don't go too far."
Before they got close to the canyon, they heard the angry roars of the Scorpion King and the other two beasts.
"Half a month? So fast?" Qin Feiyang was surprised. It didn't feel like that long.
It was true that time did not exist in cultivation.
"Boss Qin, you're here."
Seeing Qin Feiyang, the Golden Wolf King and Silver Wolf King immediately ran up and smiled flatteringly. Qin Feiyang asked, "It's not over yet?"
"There are so many blood-devouring bees. I estimate that it'll take at least half a month," Golden Wolf King said.
Qin Feiyang nodded and walked to the front of the Crocodile King and the other two beasts.
"Boss, I beg you ask them to stop. If this continues, we'll really be crippled." The four beasts quickly begged.
Qin Feiyang said expressionlessly, "Then do you know your mistakes?"
"Yes, yes, yes."
The four beasts nodded like they were pounding garlic.
"Do you remember?"
Qin Feiyang asked again.
"Yes.
I won't forget for the rest of my life,"
the four beasts said. "This is considered a light punishment. If there's a next time, I'll directly cripple you."
Qin Feiyang snorted coldly.
"Yes, yes, yes.
There won't be a next time.
We promise."
The four beasts made a solemn vow.
Sigh.
Qin Feiyang sighed and said, "You guys came in with Li Jian, but do you know? Li Jian is about to comprehend the profound meaning of becoming a god."
"What?"
The Crocodile King and the other two beasts' eyes trembled. It was actually so fast. There's a good saying, "You'll only get what you pay." Do you think that you can become a god by enjoying yourself here all day long? How can there be such a good thing? Anyway, don't wait until everyone becomes a god and you guys are still playing here. At that time, it's not me who wants to give up on you guys, but you guys who gave up on yourselves."
Qin Feiyang said.
"Boss is right. We will definitely work hard." The four beasts lowered their heads in shame. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and said, "Don't forget this lesson, go."
"Where to?"
The four beasts were suspicious. However, Qin Feiyang turned a deaf ear to him and remained motionless. He felt as if he was possessed.
"What's the situation?"
The Crocodile Emperor, the four beasts, the Golden Wolf King brothers, and the surrounding blood-devouring bees all looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. Forget, Qin Feiyang muttered. Just now, when he said, "Don't forget this lesson," the light in his mind appeared again.
And this time, he clearly caught it.
This spiritual light came from the word, forget. Forget. Haha. So that's how it is. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang's face revealed a look of realization, and he couldn't help but laugh.
"What and what? Boss Qin isn't crazy, is he?"
The beasts became more and more puzzled. Qin Feiyang grabbed Scorpion King and said excitedly, "Everything in the world comes from nothing, from something to nothing. No self, there is self, then to know self, and finally to forget self." "What no self?"
"There is me? Forget self? What the hell?" Scorpion King was dumbfounded.
Qin Feiyang said, "Before we were born, we didn't exist?"
"Yes."
Scorpion King nodded. "This is no self. After we were born, we had life, consciousness, and life. This is called there is me. When we die, we will return to no self. In the end, we will be slowly forgotten by the world, and no one will remember us anymore," Qin Feiyang said, getting more and more excited.
That's it. This is a process of life. Scorpion King nodded. It still understood this logic.
A process of life, Qin Feiyong murmured and laughed. That's right, no self, forget self, this is the true essence of becoming a god.
He immediately turned around and disappeared into the vast mountains like lightning. No self, forget self?
The true essence of becoming a god. Scorpion King, the four beasts, and the Golden Wolf King brothers looked at each other.
Quickly catch up. Following closely. The Crocodile Emperor roared, and the beasts chased after Qin Feiyong. Although they did not understand what Qin Feiyong was talking about,
but the true essence of becoming a god, as long as one was not an idiot, one could understand.
Qin Feiyong must have mastered the profound meaning of becoming a god. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for them. Whoosh! By the river.
Qin Feiyong was like a stream of light, landing beside Li Jian and said, "What you comprehended before was." But before he could say anything, Li Jian made a shushing gesture to him and said, "Young master, this can only be understood, not spoken." Qin Feiyong nodded and said with a smile, "Your comprehension is really good. It seems that it won't be long before I have another fake god by my side."
How long did I comprehend? And how long did you comprehend?
In terms of comprehension, compared to you, young master, I am thousands of miles away.
Li Jian sighed.
Qin Feiyong shook his head and smiled.
What are you talking about?
What can only be understood, but not spoken.
Feiyong, did you also comprehend something? Don't keep us in suspense. Tell us quickly.
Ling Yunfei and the other two were at the side, looking at the mysterious Qin Feiyong and Li Jian, as if 100 claws were scratching their hearts.
Boss Qin has just comprehended the true meaning of becoming a god. At this moment,
the Scorpion Emperor and the other beasts rushed over.
What? Ling Yunfei and the other two trembled.
The miss of the Dragon Phoenix house was immediately dissatisfied. Comprehending but hiding it, Feiyong, this is not how you are.
Qin Feiyong smiled but did not say anything.
The Golden Wolf King asked, "Boss Qin, no self, forget self, what does it mean?"
No self, forget self?
Ling Yunfei and the other two were stunned.
Yes.
This is what Boss Qin said when he was in an epiphany. No self, forget self is the true meaning of becoming a god. The Scorpion Emperor and the other 6 beasts nodded.
This is the true meaning of becoming a god? No self, forget self?
Could it be the realm of no self and the realm of forgetting self?
Ling Yunfei looked at Qin Feiyong and Li Jian in surprise.
Qin Feiyong and Li Jian looked at each other and smiled. Qin Feiyong shook his head and said, "It's not that simple, you guys slowly comprehend it, it's useless to say it."
With that, he turned and left alone. Chapter 1641. Let's talk about Willow Tree and the other 3.
After half a month of non-stop travel, they had already gone deep into the desert. There were storms all around, sweeping up yellow sand all over the sky. The wind blades sliced across their bodies like sharp blades. The storms here were enough to threaten a war emperor. However, apart from the storms, they didn't encounter any other dangers. Along the way, they didn't see any traces of beasts. Li Yun said, "Brother Ning, do you remember the situation when we came to the desert last time?"
I remember.
Ning Mingi nodded and said worriedly, "Although the storms here can't threaten us, even we can't withstand the deeper storms."
Yes.
I really don't understand. Why does Brother Qin want to go to the end of the desert?
Willow Tree, you are now deeply trusted by Qin Feiyong. He even gave you the castle and Chang Shui. Do you know the reason?
Li Yun turned to look at Willow Tree and asked suspiciously.
I don't know.
Willow Tree shook his head.
You really don't know?
Li Yun didn't believe it.
I really don't know. Willow Tree smiled bitterly. However,
although he didn't know, he could roughly guess that it should have something to do with leaving the Black Tortoise realm. Zhuge Mingyang, who was at the side, did not say a word. He seemed to be deep in thought. He was undoubtedly thinking about this problem. But suddenly, he looked at the storm in front of him on the left, and a trace of surprise appeared in his eyes. Just now, he keenly caught a black shadow in the void, but before he could see it clearly, the shadow disappeared into the storm.
What is it?
He muttered in his heart and didn't say anything.
He secretly became vigilant. Willow Tree and the other two were chatting, so they didn't notice anything unusual. The four of them continued to go deeper. Zhuge Mingyang kept looking at the storm, but the black shadow never appeared again. It was as if it didn't exist at all. This made him wonder if it was an illusion.
It wasn't until they were far away from the storm that he retracted his gaze and scanned the void in front of him.
Yellow sand filled the sky.
Other than the sound of the wind, there was no other sound.
The air was dry and stuffy.
He couldn't help but feel irritated.
Suddenly, Zhuge Mingyang's eyes abruptly turned to look at a windstorm 50 to 60 miles away. The storm had a diameter of more than 10 meters, and it was howling.
Just a moment ago, he had caught sight of a black shadow that had entered the storm like a bolt of lightning.
Looks like it wasn't an illusion. There really is a problem. Zhuge Mingyang narrowed his eyes and locked onto the storm. Zhuge Mingyang was following behind Willow Tree's trio. In addition, Zhuge Mingyang hadn't said a word since the beginning, so the trio didn't notice the change in Zhuge Mingyang's expression. A moment later, the three of them directly flew past the storm.
However, when Zhuge Mingyang passed by the storm, he suddenly exploded and shouted, "I want to see what kind of monster you are." He took a step forward, and his quasi-divinity power roared in all directions, instantly vanquishing the storm. Willow Tree's trio was startled when they heard Zhuge Mingyang's shout. They hurriedly stopped and turned to look. They saw Zhuge Mingyang standing in the void, scanning the area in front of him. His eyes were shining with a terrifying light. However, there was nothing in the void in front of Zhuge Mingyang. Willow Tree asked suspiciously, "What are you doing? What's going on? Why is there no black shadow?"
Zhuge Mingyang murmured, and his eyebrows gradually knitted together.
If he had only seen it once, it would be reasonable to say that it was an illusion. However, seeing it twice in a row, it would be unreasonable to say that it was an illusion. However, there was indeed nothing in front of him.
Seeing Zhuge Mingyang's silence, Li Yun said angrily, "Zhuge Mingyang, what did you find? Don't be so startled. Can you scare us?"
Zhuge Mingyang glanced at the void and waved his hand with a smile.
"It's nothing. Let's continue." "Crazy." Willow Tree's trio glared at him, then turned back and continued moving forward. Zhuge Mingyang also quickly followed, but his eyes were always looking behind him. For some reason, he began to feel uneasy. He kept feeling that there was something hidden around him. However, after galloping for tens of thousands of miles, nothing unexpected happened. The black shadow also seemed to have disappeared from the world. "It seems that I've been under too much pressure recently, and my nerves are a little messed up." Seeing that the black shadow did not appear again, Zhuge Mingyang rubbed his forehead and muttered to himself. He also slowly relaxed his vigilance. Whoosh! In front, a few storms swept over, rolling up sand waves that were dozens and hundreds of meters high, covering the sky and the earth. This was common in the desert. If one was weak, one would avoid it. If one was strong, one would directly crush it. Willow Tree's trio obviously belonged to the latter. Li Yun led the way, and a terrifying divine power swept over. Boom! The storms were annihilated on the spot. The four did not take it to heart.
However, at the same time that the storms were annihilated, a few black shadows suddenly jumped out of the storms, like ghosts, silently and directly entered between Li Yun's eyebrows.
"What the hell is that?" Li Yun turned pale with fright. Willow Tree and Ning Mingi were also shocked. "It's really not an illusion." Zhuge Mingyang glanced around, and his eyes flickered. He had just relaxed, but now he immediately became vigilant. Because from the previous situation, there should be more than these mysterious black shadows in the desert. "Ah! What are you? Get out of my head." The next moment, Li Yun held his head and roared. His face was contorted in pain.
"Brother Li, are you okay?"
Ning Mingi and Willow Tree hurried forward and asked with concern. Although the two were opponents in the past, the situation was different now. Everyone was on the same boat. If someone was in trouble, they definitely could not sit back and do nothing.
"Get out of here, do you hear me?"
However, in the face of Willow Tree and Ning Mingi's inquiry, Li Yun turned a deaf ear and kept roaring. The two looked at each other, hurriedly took a step forward, and turned to look at Li Yun. When they saw Li Yun's situation at the moment, the two suddenly turned pale with fright. They saw that Li Yun's facial features had already been distorted. Blood vessels burst out from under his skin. They looked like earthworms wriggling under Li Yun's skin, making one's scalp numb. Moreover, wisps of black mist constantly emerged from the two eyeballs, like ink, and instantly soaked the whites of the two eyeballs. Finally, the whites of the two eyes turned pitch black. They couldn't even find where the eyeballs were. What's wrong with him? Willow Tree was surprised and bewildered. Zhuge Mingyang stepped forward to see this scene, and couldn't help but feel creeped out. He secretly warned, "It's a little strange, be careful." But before his voice died away, Li Yun suddenly looked up and stared at the three of them. That distorted face covered with blood vessels was extremely ferocious. And from his mouth there was a sound? A sinister laugh. Boom. The next moment, he raised his hands, clenched his 5 fingers into fists, and the power of the false god rolled out, blasting towards the three of them. "Retreat!" Ning Mingi shouted. The three of them retreated like lightning. Willow Tree said angrily, "Li Yun, what are you doing?" But Li Yun still turned a deaf ear to it, and used the auxiliary technique to quickly chase after the three of them. "Black shadows," Zhuge Mingyang murmured. Suddenly, he seemed to think of something and said in surprise, "Could it be that his consciousness is controlled by those black shadows?" Control? Willow Tree and Ning Mingi's eyes trembled. What could control Li Yun's consciousness? One had to know. Li Yun was a false god, and a stage 10 false god. Boom. Just as the three of them were surprised, Li Yun actually used the divine technique, and a terrifying destructive force rushed towards the three of them. Zhuge Mingyang shouted, "We can't retreat anymore, we have to stop him." "How do we stop him? Do we have to kill him?" Willow Tree asked. "It depends. I'll deal with him, you guys pay attention to the situation around. I suspect that there are still those mysterious black shadows around." Zhuge Mingyang said in a deep voice. "There are more?" Willow Tree and Ning Mingi were shocked and quickly looked around, their eyes full of vigilance. At the same time, Zhuge Mingyang rushed towards Li Yun. Roar! Facing the unknown situation, he decisively activated his battle soul to end the battle quickly. A huge bone dragon roared out from behind him. The dragon's aura shook the sky. Immediately after, an invisible aura surged out, instantly enveloping all directions. This was his special ability. Destruction. Li Yun's cultivation immediately began to plummet. As Li Yun's cultivation fell, the power of the divine technique continued to weaken. In the blink of an eye, Li Yun's cultivation fell to 7-star combat emperor. Shatter! At this moment, Zhuge Mingyang shouted angrily and punched the divine technique. With a loud bang, the divine technique collapsed on the spot. Without stopping, he rushed towards Li Yun like lightning and slammed his palm on Li Yun's chest. Crack! With the sound of bones breaking, Li Yun's chest suddenly caved in, and flesh and blood splattered everywhere. Even his heart was torn apart. His entire body was like a meteorite, smashing into the desert below. What's going on? Willow Tree and Ning Mingi, who were not far away, looked at the blood splattering in the void as if they had seen a ghost. The blood flowing out of Li Yun's body was actually black. Could it be that he had been demonized by the black shadow? Zhuge Mingyang also frowned. Roar! Suddenly, a beast-like roar came from the bottom of the desert, shaking the sky. The three of them hurriedly looked over and saw Li Yun rushing out of the yellow sand. There was no sign of weakness on his ferocious face. His chest was still bleeding. However, he seemed to be unable to feel any pain. "He doesn't even feel anything?" Zhuge Mingyang murmured. His eyes were suddenly filled with murderous intent. The grayish-white false god power surged out like a tide and turned into a giant hand that covered the sky. It floated in the sky and emitted a demonic power that could destroy the world. Divine technique. Ning Mingi's eyes trembled. He hurriedly looked at Willow Tree and said, "He wants to kill. Shouldn't we stop him?" Willow Tree looked at Li Yun and said in a low voice, "If he has really demonized, then killing him is the wisest choice." Ning Mingi fell silent. "Li Yun, if you don't wake up, don't blame me for being merciless," Zhuge Mingyang shouted. However, Li Yun did not wake up. Instead, he became even crazier. With a loud clang, the azure light sword appeared. He grabbed the azure light sword.
The false god power and chi and blood surged out as he desperately tried to recover.
Chapter 1642.
You actually used your chi and blood to revive the artifact. It seems that you are hopeless. Heavenly Demon Hand, kill! Zhuge Mingyang roared angrily, and the giant hand suspended in the air, like a mountain, suddenly fell down. Divine power rolled in all directions.
Clang! At the same time,
Li Yun waved the azure light sword and slashed it. Thousands of sword lights were like a waterfall, tearing the sky.
Now, he was out of the range of Zhuge Mingyang's supernatural ability. Therefore, his cultivation had been restored to the pseudo-god realm.
With the peak cultivation, coupled with the power of the pseudo-god and chi and blood at the same time, the power of the azure light sword was terrifying.
Boom!
The heavenly demon hand and the sword light collided with a loud bang, the void collapsed, the desert sank, and the wind swept through the world.
Willow Tree and Li Yun couldn't help but retreat.
After the two were in a stalemate for a few breaths, the sword light gradually gained the upper hand.
Courting death! Zhuge Mingyang was stunned. The bone dragon above roared and swooped down like lightning. Li Yun was once again shrouded by the supernatural ability. His cultivation rapidly plummeted. The power of the azure light sword also plummeted. How is this possible? His supernatural ability can not only suppress the divine arts, but also the artifact. Willow Tree was shocked. It is indeed terrifying.
No wonder even the young master is so afraid of him.
Ning Mingi nodded. Boom!
The power of the azure light sword was suppressed, and the heavenly demon hand instantly turned the situation around, crushing down with irresistible force.
Seeing that the situation was not good, Li Yun wanted to retreat. But it was too late. The heavenly demon hand fell, and the demonic power shook the world. The desert below caved in, forming a huge handprint. Why did you do this to me? Suddenly, Li Yun looked up at Zhuge Mingyang and said angrily. The blackness in his eyes receded like the tide. The bulging blood vessels on his face also quickly disappeared, and his facial features returned to normal. He didn't seem to be the slightest bit different. Seeing this, Zhuge Mingyang raised his eyebrows.
Li Yun looked at the Willow Tree duo and shouted, Willow Tree, Brother Ning, why are you still standing there?
Come and help me. Willow Tree and Yi Zichen looked at each other. Had everything returned to normal?
When he came back to his senses, Willow Tree quickly shouted, Zhuge Mingyang, stop!
Zhuge Mingyang glanced at the Willow Tree and then at Li Yun.
With a wave of his hand, the heavenly devil's hand disintegrated.
The bone dragon fighting soul also dissipated in the void.
The Willow Tree duo flew in front of Li Yun and asked suspiciously, Are you sure you're all right now?
What problem can I have?
Li Yun rolled her eyes at them. But suddenly she looked stunned and frowned.
Wait, there seems to be a problem.
As soon as the Willow Tree duo heard this, they immediately retreated to Zhuge Mingyang's side, their faces full of vigilance.
What are you doing? Am I that scary? I said there's a problem, not with me, but with those shadows from before.
Li Yun said helplessly.
Tell me. Willow Tree said.
After those shadows got into my sea of consciousness, they went straight to my soul, and then I lost consciousness.
Li Yun frowned. Straight to the soul? The Willow Tree trio looked at each other and frowned. Yes.
They seem to want to swallow my soul.
Li Yun said. Isn't this equivalent to possession?
Ning Mingi said. Could it be? Willow Tree seemed to have thought of something.
Her body suddenly trembled, and she looked at the void around her in surprise.
What is it? The three of them looked at her suspiciously. Undead. Willow Tree said word by word, with a trace of fear in his eyes. Undead.
As soon as Zhuge Mingyang heard these two words, a light flashed in the depths of his eyes.
Are there really undead in this desert?
But it's impossible.
The last time Brother Ning and I were in this desert, we stayed for half a year, but we didn't see a single undead.
Li Yun said. Yes. Ning Mingi nodded.
Willow Tree said, If it's not the undead, then how do you explain what happened before?
Why don't we inform the young master and let him come out and take a look?
Ning Mingi said.
You're also an experienced person. Don't you know that you can't be disturbed when you're comprehending the profound meaning of becoming a god? Willow Tree raised his eyebrows, his tone a little angry. Ning Mingi smiled embarrassedly. Willow Tree said, "Whether it's the undead or not, at least the crisis has been resolved now.
There's no need to alarm the young master.
As for the future, we'll have to be careful." Li Yun and Ning Mingi nodded.
Willow Tree said, "Let's go."
Li Yun flew to the three of them and continued to move forward. However, as he flew, Li Yun suddenly attacked and slapped towards Zhuge Mingyang. Her face, which had returned to normal, was instantly covered with crooked blood vessels. The whites of his eyes had turned black once again. Zhuge Mingyang was standing next to her. It was so sudden that it could be said that no one could react. However, Zhuge Mingyang reacted in time. He pursed his lips with a hint of ridicule, raised his arm like lightning, and blasted out a palm. The two big hands met with a bang, and the power of a pseudo-god erupted. Puff! Li Yun immediately spat out a mouthful of blood and was sent flying. On the other hand, Zhuge Mingyang only took a few steps back. Although Li Yun had reached the 10th stage of the pseudo-god realm, Zhuge Mingyang's pseudo-god realm was naturally stronger than others. It was completely enough to make up for these gaps. Even suppress. This was the terrifying part of Zhuge Mingyang's pseudo-god realm power. Willow Tree and Li Yun looked back, and their eyes were filled with murderous intent. How dare he lie to them? Unforgivable anger. Kill! Ning Mingi shouted, and his divine power rolled out, and his hair fluttered in anger. The three of them rushed towards Li Yun at the same time. Seeing this, Li Yun immediately turned around and flew away. Willow Tree chased while thinking, "Zhuge Mingyang, how did you find out that he hasn't returned to normal?" There are only two ways to return to normal after being controlled by those dirty things. Either expel them from the sea of consciousness, or destroy them. But before this, did you see those black shadows coming out of his sea of consciousness? As for the latter, if Li Yun was the one who destroyed them, there's no way he wouldn't have mentioned it earlier. However, he didn't say anything. What does this mean? It means that he is still being controlled by those dirty things. I'm puzzled. You are antiques who have lived for tens of thousands of years. Why can't you see this? I can't figure out why Qin Feiyong likes idiots like you. Zhuge Mingyang sneered. Hearing this, the two of them were angry and ashamed. Ning Mingi stared at Li Yun's back and said angrily, "You made me be mocked. See if I don't destroy you today." Willow Tree even took out Chong Shui. Roar! At the same time, Zhuge Mingyang activated his fighting soul again. The bone dragon roared in the sky. His supernatural power reappeared. An invisible aura, like a huge wave, rushed toward Li Yun. A trace of panic appeared on Li Yun's face. When the invisible aura rushed over, Li Yun's cultivation fell directly, and his speed was also greatly reduced. Willow Tree and Ning Mingi chased after him in the blink of an eye. Both of them were murderous. Zhuge Mingyang raised the corner of his mouth and shouted, "Smash his head. Don't let those dirty things escape." Okay. The two of them nodded. Ning Mingi punched the back of Li Yun's head. Willow Tree grabbed Chong Shui and stabbed toward Li Yun's head. Yes. Smash and stab like this. Behind him, Zhuge Mingyang's face was full of smiles. Whoosh. But suddenly, a few black lights flashed from Li Yun's head. It was the few black shadows. Seeing this, Willow Tree and Ning Mingi retracted their fists and Chong Shui, and turned to attack the few black shadows. The black shadows left the sea of consciousness, and Li Yun immediately stopped in the void, looking confused. As for Zhuge Mingyang, when he saw Li Yunhe and the few black shadows, his face was filled with anger. He shouted, "Stop chasing." Willow Tree and Ning Mingi braked and turned to look at Zhuge Mingyang suspiciously. If they are really undead, then they can't escape from my hands. Zhuge Mingyang smiled coldly. He waved his hand. Whoosh! A small black flag appeared in front of him. The small flag was the size of a palm, and black fog surged all over it. There was a totem on it that looked like a giant dragon, but it had 9 heads, and it emitted a shocking murderous aura. But the most terrifying thing was the small flag itself. It was like a peerless demon king that had been sealed for a long time was born. As soon as it appeared, the sky changed color, and the clouds surged. The black fog was like a demonic aura, enveloping all directions. Willow Tree and Ning Mingi could not help but feel cold all over. Li Yun also quivered,
and the confusion in her eyes dissipated. She turned to look at the small flag in front of Zhuge Mingyang, and her face was full of horror. Although they did not know what the small flag was, it gave them a fatal sense of danger. And this sense of danger came from the depths of their hearts and souls. Zhuge Mingyang looked at the small flag as if he was looking at a relative, and said with a smile, "Go!" Whoosh! The small flag suddenly turned into a black light, and cut through the sky. In less than 2 blinks of an eye, it caught up with a few black shadows. Then, a scene that shocked Willow Tree and the other two appeared. The black fog emitted by the small flag rushed toward the few black shadows. And when the few black shadows were shrouded by the black fog, they immediately screamed in horror. That scream was like a ghost, sharp and ear-piercing. They struggled desperately to get rid of the black fog, but the black fog was like gangrene attached to the bone. Once it stuck to them, they could not get rid of it. Gradually, the few black shadows dissipated, merged into the black fog, and became a part of the black fog. "It's really the undead," Zhuge Mingyang murmured. Whoosh! Then, the small flag turned in the air, flew in front of Zhuge Mingyang, and disappeared directly between Zhuge Mingyang's eyebrows. The three swallowed their saliva. Li Yun looked at Willow Tree and Zhuge Mingyang, and asked, "What happened just now? Why don't I remember anything?" "You don't remember anything?" Willow Tree was surprised. "Yes. After those black shadows entered my sea of consciousness, I lost consciousness immediately." After Li Yun finished speaking, she felt a pain in her chest. Looking down, she was furious and roared, "Who did this?" "Me," Zhuge Mingyang said. "You." Li Yun was stunned and said angrily, "Why did you do this? Do I have a grudge against you?" "Calm down. Calm down." Willow Tree and Ning Mingi quickly flew over and explained the situation in detail. "There's actually such a thing? You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.